All right, let's see if that worked. Let me know if you can see and or hear me, chat. Beautiful. Thank you, Ms. Art Rules, Lenina. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, back to Paleontologizing. Welcome back to Wyoming. Welcome to a live dinosaur dig where we're doing paleontological fieldwork here. If it's your very first time, allow me to welcome you to the channel. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. And I'm here on Twitch trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. So, yeah, believe it or not, this is how I make my living as a paleontologist, is by live streaming, by trying to give you an inside peek into how paleontology works. And during the summers, I'm lucky enough to be able to bring you out to the field so that you can see how we collect fossils and gather data and do paleontological fieldwork. This is thanks to the magic of Twitch and satellite internet and solar power. I can broadcast from the middle of nowhere here. And, yeah, shoot, I'm really happy you're here. The whole point of these broadcasts is to show you how fossil science really works. Rather than just telling you, I can show you. I think that's pretty cool, and if you've got any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask. That's the whole point of these live streams. That's why this is live and not a pre-recorded video. So there's that degree of interactivity that Twitch is so wonderful to have. So that's one of the reasons why Twitch is so wonderful, is having that kind of interactivity, you know? So, yeah. Let's see, we've got Casey Snowart, Latigo Smith, Ms. Art Rules, Geos Rudent, Zara Zeev X. How are you doing? Jara Zeev, rather. Howdy, welcome. Yeah. Halle Berry, son of Austerlitz, Mothproof KT. We're back at Turtle Hill today, Mothproof KT, and I'm joined by Fisher and Ave. So yeah, we're going to be hanging out, finding some more fossils, and we'll see what we uncover today. The site is getting kind of small. We're getting ready to wrap it up for the season, and so we're trying not to open up any new benches or anything. So I'm mostly going to be walking around with the camera and occasionally pestering these two. But we've got Ava right here, and we've got whoop. It went in the rat hole. There you go.
Sorry, I was so excited.
And we got Fisher.
Hello.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a really cool site where we're getting fossils that might not be very, I don't know, exciting to a layperson, but to paleontologists, these are really important. Lots of little fish pieces, turtle pieces, other what we call microvertebrates. So bones of small critters. And this is a wonderful site for trying to figure out what sort of environment this is in the late Cretaceous almond formation. So, yeah, scientifically very important site, even if it's not as big and flashy as, say, a dinosaur bone bed or something like that. But yeah, we're glad to be here and glad that you're here. But yeah, and Memers says, you raided in yesterday and stayed? Well, it's great to have you here. What's shaking? Welcome back. Yeah. And all fossils are fascinating. It is true, Geos Rudent. They're all, you know, the preserved remains of ancient life forms, and each one is kind of important in its own way. You know, but some are more important than others, if they're rarer or more informative. But, yeah. Yeah, what do you got going there, Fish?
Mobius tooth.
Ooh.
And then...
Oh, look at that. Very cool. So it's a pointy tooth of an ancient carnivorous fish called Melvius.
It's one of the more common fossils we find here.
Yeah, nice.
Usually they're quite small like this. This is just the very tip, or
yeah.
The crown. But the base of it, you know, expands out and gets quite wide.
Very cool.
We find complete ones rarely, but the tips are very common. So common that we have more than one vial. It's
holy cow.
Chock full of them.
Nice, yeah. I found a really big one yesterday that was like, shoot, it was probably like this long. That's already been wrapped up, so I can't show you, chat, sorry. The streaming comes secondary to the science. At this and every other site. Yeah.
Currently unwrapped. So.
Oh, yeah.
I pulled this out this morning.
Nice skull plate there, probably.
Piece of a fish, yeah. Maybe Melvius. It's about the right size to be Melvius.
Mm-hmm.
And it's higher up in the little stratigraphy of these lower beds, which is usually where we find the Melvius skull pieces.
Nice.
And this morning, Danny found this really nice rib.
Yeah.
Which I also belong to Melvius.
Gotta have them ribs.
So ribs often aren't the most informative elements that you'll pull out, but if we get complete ones, then I like to collect them because I don't believe the Melvius ribs have ever been properly described. So having a good sample size of them could be nice for that.
Yeah, good stuff. Really glad it's held together as well.
Yeah.
I poured a lot of glue onto that, so I'm glad it hasn't
You
grown.
got lucky with just pulling this out.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out just clean like that.
So this is
with
the
a
surface.
rib-shaped impression in the ground underneath it.
You like that?
Yeah.
Often they'll just crumble, but you got lucky here,
You got lucky
especially
there.
with
Very
this
nice.
capitulum here.
Do you have another rib right there by your left hand?
This I don't think is a rib.
Oh.
This might be part of a rib. This I don't think is one. It's not the right shape. I'm not sure what that is.
Interesting.
It doesn't really look like a chevron either, so I'm not really sure.
Huh.
Again, none of us who have ever worked the site are experts on fish anatomy.
Right, we're learning as we go. Yeah.
Which makes it challenging because they have a lot of unique bones, a lot of oddly shaped bones, and they can be quite variable between individuals as well. So if you look at the skull of a modern Amiid,
Like
which
a
is the
bowfin,
family
yeah.
that Melvius belongs to, even in the same animal, their two, paired skull bones can be wildly different in shape.
So, shoot, ones that you would think to be identical because of bilateral symmetry, they could be
mirrored.
different. Yeah.
Makes it
Fish are weird.
challenging.
Their bones are weird. But yeah. Yeah, and somebody was asking what's in the container. This is where all the vials are, with all of the really cool little specimens.
Do a little bit of a tour of some of
Oh
the
yeah.
early
For the early folks here, you're in for a
Got
treat.
Some teeth from some rays.
Like a stingray type of critter, probably.
Yeah. Although we're thinking these are probably belong to something that resembles a guitar fish.
Yeah, nice.
Which is kind of like if you took a stingray and instead of having it be a circle, you turned it into like
Made it longer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
You
maybe like
lengthened it.
Maybe a more rhomboidal shape. They're all part of the same family.
Mm-hmm.
We've got these little durophagus button teeth.
Nice.
Ethan keeps on telling me the taxon name, but I always forget.
It starts with a C, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget it too.
But it's a fish that's eating hard-shelled invertebrates, probably that it's finding on the bottom of the lake bed, crunching them up, so snails and clams and that kind of thing.
Nice.
And so that's what these little rounded button teeth are used for. And last
Very
year we pulled out a tooth plate that had a lot of these all meshed together, stacked on top of each other.
Awesome.
That came from the upper bone bed though. So not the same fish, but swimming around here. In this one we've got a little fragment of a fish jaw,
Oh, yeah, look at that.
which
Nice.
are also quite common. We don't find the complete ones often, but you'll often get, one with 2 or 3 teeth in it. They're always kind of fun.
Awesome.
We've got some little vertebrae from fish.
Ooh. Yeah.
Showing that characteristic amphicoelous shape.
I'm surprised we haven't found more.
We get a lot, but they blow up quite easily.
Okay, that
And
makes
so
sense.
you'll take up a sheet and you'll pull out half of a fish fur and you'll be like, well, it's not going to go back together easily in the field, so I'm just going to matrix bag it. But sometimes we'll get some nice ones like this.
Nice.
And you can tell they're fish vertebrae because they've got the concavities on both ends. So that's amphicoelous. So vertebrae are classified by the cavities or the convexities of their centra.
Yep. So you got amphicoelous, procoelous, epistocoelous.
And then I'm trying to remember what the weird bird one is.
Yeah. Shoot. Let's see, it starts with an S. Procoelous, amphicoelous, epistocoelous, and... Gosh darn it, somebody in the chat, let us know.
And that fourth one.
Maybe Dyson Dinosaur knows. Hey, welcome, Filippo. It's good to have you here. That's Italian paleontologist Filippo Bertozzo who just raided in. Excellent.
And let's see. Lastly, the camera should like to show off is our one mammal from the almond.
Yeah, look at that.
Our multituberculate tooth.
Gorgeous. The only mammal ever found in the almond formation. From right here. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. That's history being made right there.
That's an important specimen.
Yeah.
But it's smaller than your pinky nail.
Yeah.
So.
The whole animal would probably be the size of a mouse or something like that. If even that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Thanks, Fisher.
Of course.
Cool.
Feel free to pop by anytime for
Will do.
progress
Yeah, I'll pop by
updates.
every time. So yeah, there we go. Again, welcome to Paleontologizing for those of you just coming in. Dyson Dinosaur, I hope you had an excellent stream. How are you doing, Filippo? What were you getting up to? We've got 6 days of digging left, including today, here at the site. Well, here out in Wyoming. And yeah, trying to finish out that bench right there. So Fisher and Avery are going to be working as I'm walking around and yapping to the camera. So if you've got any questions at all, do not hesitate. 5 days of digging so far. We're going to be going for, what, the full 30? Yeah, 30 days of digging without a single day off for me so far. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Also, not a single shower yet. That's going to be really nice. I the other day booked myself a hotel in Salt Lake City. Really looking forward to being able to just take a shower, sit in some air conditioning. Yeah. Sleep in a bed. Although I gotta say, I'm very lucky. I've got a nice cot with a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag. So that's pretty luxurious for me. Just, I got that in the last few years, and it honestly makes fieldwork so much easier. Holy cow, just having a nice place to sleep at night. And yeah. And Mothproof says it's such a privilege to get to hear from people who clearly love their work and are so knowledgeable. I was talking about that with Fisher earlier. We'll talk to him again, but yeah, he's like, oh man, I can't believe the field season's almost over. He's going to be doing other field work, I think also in Wyoming later in the year, or later in the summer, in a couple weeks. But yeah, he's like, if I could stay out here all year, I would. That's dedication right there. And a shower, air conditioning, you're getting spoiled, says Gary and Kellis. I know, right? Man, but I think after 32 days out here, I hope I've earned it. Yeah. Anywho, can't wait for Cedar. Yeah, Cedar Mountain for Dr. Terminator. We'll here. But yeah, Uncle Don is gonna be there. Karen Poole. I think Marcello might be there as well. It's gonna be a good crew. We're really gonna miss Fisher though. He's not gonna be out. It sounds like he's gonna be doing field work in the Eocene of Wyoming instead of the earliest Cretaceous of Utah. But he's got to spread his wings and fly. So yeah. And tell Fisher to stream. So, Mothproof KT, Fisher and I talked about doing some live streams when he moves to California in the fall. But he doesn't think he wants to stream by himself. He doesn't want to have his own channel. But he says he'd be happy to do some streams with me at some point, and I think that would be really neat. So, we'll be seeing more of Fisher later this year, even if he isn't even if he isn't in Utah with us next month. Casey says, can't wait to see Fisher back on stream off season. Yeah, it'd be really neat. I definitely want to take Fisher out whale watching, maybe go to the Marine Mammal Center. Maybe we could even stream some of that. We'll see. But it depends on a few things. He's also going to be busy. He's in like a 2-year grad school program in Central California. And so, yeah, his time will be precious, but I think we'll get to hang out. It'll be cool. He'll be in California, which is, just like maybe an hour and a half from where I live. It'll be neat. We might do some fun weekend streams, potentially. But yeah. And we had some other questions. Let me see if I can pull those up. Sorry, I missed them earlier when Fisher was talking. Let's see. Someone was asking if we have any dinosaur material from this site. We do. We do have a few odds and ends of dinosaurs here. There was a what was it, last week? And a dinosaur tooth from the week prior, if memory serves. This site has got small... Yeah, you do get small dinosaurs in the late Cretaceous of North America. Dromaeosaurs, Troodontids, maybe thescelosaurs, leptoceratopsids, oviraptorosaurs, critters like that. But if we're going to find elements from them here, they're probably going to be small. Claws, phalanges, maybe some odd teeth here and there would be really nice. But yeah, thus far we've only got one dinosaur rib and one dinosaur tooth from this site. You want to go to the other sites if you want dinosaurs. We've got whole dinosaur, big skeletal elements at some of the other sites. Like the ankylosaur site, where the majority of our crew is working right now. They're really trying to finish that up in the next 6 days. And it's a challenge because entrenching around these bones, trying to get them isolated so they can be jacketed and removed. In the act of digging those trenches, they're finding more and more bone all over the place. Just bones in the middle of the trenches. So it's making things difficult. But they're figuring it out. We have to, after all. We've got 5 more days here after today. And there was a late night there at the Yankee site yesterday. I think they were digging until about 8:30 or so. The 3 of us vegetarians here at this site went back to camp and made some veggie burgers, and we had dinner before everybody else did. That was kind of nice. One of the perks of being a vegetarian in the field. Let's see. Who else have we got? And Crimson Carnotaurus says, wasn't the Marine Mammal Center the place you wanted to stream at, but signals were rubbish? You did the Golden Gate Bridge instead? Yes. So I was streaming via mobile data, like cellular network data, last September. And I went to the Marine Mammal Center, got set up for stream, and we just did not get any signal. It's too isolated out there. There's no cell towers nearby. So I'm going to try and redo that at some point in the nearish future, using the... And and maybe I'll have to set up like a wireless mesh network so that we can get signal through a wide area. Because this little dish right here is it's not the most powerful in terms of Wi-Fi signal. The Wi-Fi radio in it is pretty small. So yeah. And let's see. And Astoria says, who names these dinosaurs? They get named when they get published. So say we find a new kind of dinosaur, like we think we have several new kinds of dinosaur here in Wyoming that our crew has been excavating for the past 4 or 5 years. A few of these are almost certainly new. And so the way that works is you take all of the fossil material that you collect back to the laboratory, you clean it, you get it ready for study, then you study it, you photograph it, you illustrate it, and then you write up a descriptive paper. So in science, it is publish or perish in a way that's not necessarily a bad thing. In science, you have to be able to publish things in order for them to exist, in a sense. Like, if something is unpublished, it might as well not exist. Publication is kind of a filter that we use for quality control. And so anybody can have an idea, anybody can say whatever they want, whatever, but if you get something published, then that means that you've sat down, you've really studied it, you've consulted other people about it, you've come to your conclusions, and then you've had it peer-reviewed. So other scientists have checked your work, hopefully spotted any mistakes. If they have any doubts about your conclusions, they can bring those up and you can talk about it. And yeah, you're just making a case for, in this case, this is a new kind of dinosaur. So if you're trying to demonstrate that you've got a new kind of dinosaur, you compare it to its close relatives and you find distinguishing characteristics, things that make it unique. Hopefully you can build a strong enough case that you can convince the peer reviewers that you do have a dinosaur, and then you name it in the paper. So you come up with a new genus or species name for it. And that's how dinosaurs get named. Some of the naming conventions are, I don't know, oftentimes dinosaurs have the suffix saurus on them. So like Tyrannosaurus, Pachycephalosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Edmontosaurus. Saurus means lizard or reptile. It's just kind of a traditional dinosaur suffix. But they don't have to be that way, There's lots of other dinosaurs with other suffixes on them. Ceratops is a popular one for ceratopsian dinosaurs, the horned dinosaurs. Raptor has become a popular suffix for dromaeosaur dinosaurs and for oviraptorosaurs and some other theropods like that. But yeah, we come up with the names ourselves. Often they're derived from Latin or Greek, but not always. You know, at this point, we've named a lot of dinosaurs. There's about 2,000 different dinosaur names, and sometimes it's hard to come up with a good original one. So increasingly, paleontologists are turning to different languages other than Latin and Greek. So yeah, there's a dinosaur called Jacapil, for instance, which I think means it's like shield bearer or something like that. It's a weird little armored dinosaur from South America. And the name Jacapil or Yacapil, or however you want to say it, that is a Mapudungun word, I believe, or Mapuche word. So it's like a native language from that area. Yeah, there's a lot of those, which is, I think it's cool. It makes things interesting when you've got names derived from different languages other than just Latin and Greek. Yeah, a Siach, that's a good one there, Dr. Terminator. Yeah. But yeah. And Prince Nerdus says, I'm still waiting for them to name a species Danisaurus. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but we'll see. That is one of the greatest honors that someone can bestow upon a paleontologist, is to name a new species or genus after them. I don't have any for me yet, but yeah, maybe that would be a bad thing, actually. Maybe it would mean that I met a tragic death, so someone decided to posthumously honor me with a name. But Daniceratops, that's the name of the site, RB42, yeah. When we find a site, we often get to name it. So this one here is called Turtle Hill. We've got another site called Purple Puzzle. The Ankylosaur site, the official name for that is Josh's Knoll. And so when you're out prospecting, looking for new fossil material, once you find a site, usually you get to name it. It's generally just how it works. So, yeah. I found a few dinosaur sites in my day and given them, different names, and it's always fun. I didn't name Daniceratops, though. I found that site, and I was struggling to come up with a name fast enough, and so my crew chief at the time, he's like, we're just going to call it Daniceratops. Danny, you found a ceratopsian dinosaur. We'll call the site Daniceratops. But that's not the name of the animal. It doesn't have a name yet. It should be a new species, but yeah. I'm not publishing on that one, so we'll see what Denver decides to call it. And in Tolkien Otaku, is there a dinosaur named after a Native American word for coyote? It was the Ute language. The animal's name is Yurgavuchia. I believe it was Jim Kirkland who named that. And that is from our site that we're going to be at in Utah next month, starting on the 15th. So, yeah, we can talk about Yurgavuchia then. But it comes from a Ute word for coyote. Yurgavuch, I think, is the name. So, oftentimes, if you're coming up with a genus or species name, you might add an IA to it. You're kind of Latinizing it. So Yurgavuchia is the name of that dromaeosaur, that raptor dinosaur. Yeah, score 1 for my spotty memory. There you go, Tolkien. I'm impressed. Yeah. And let's see. And Carva Upeli says hello. Hello to you too. Welcome. Is it assumed that most dinosaurs had some feathers? Yes and no. Yeah, that's a great question. We know that a bunch of different dinosaurs did have feathers, but it's not an assumption. We know that from direct fossil evidence, which is pretty cool. We have a lot of fossil feathers on dinosaurs from places like Liaoning province in China. We've got other dinosaur feathers from places like Las Hoyas in Spain, or we actually have some from up in Alberta, Canada. Most of these guys are theropod dinosaurs, the two-legged, mostly meat-eating dinosaurs. And that's the group that birds evolved from. So birds have feathers because they inherited that characteristic from their dinosaur ancestors. Birds are a kind of dinosaur. Birds came from the dinosaur family tree, from the theropod branch on the dinosaur family tree. But the question is, did other kinds of dinosaurs, the ones that aren't that close to birds, did they have feathers too? And for at least some of them, the answer seems to be yes. We've got feathers on a little two-legged, beaky, plant-eating dinosaur from Russia. That's called Kulindodromeus, and it does seem to have really simple filamentous feathers. There's another one from China called Tiani Yulong, which is another little beaky plant-eater. Yeah, and then we've got potentially these quill-like things on Psittacosaurus, this parrot-beaked plant-eating dinosaur from China. But yeah, we don't really know how widespread feathers are across the whole dinosaur family tree. That's something that's still being figured out. That's still kind of being discussed and argued over to a certain extent. How many times did feathers evolve? Are feathers an ancestral trait for all dinosaurs? And then some dinosaur groups lost those feathers secondarily? They just got rid of them? These are things we're still trying to figure out. But yeah, at least some dinosaurs, many species, did have feathers. And that's where birds got their feathers from, was from their dinosaur ancestors. Dinosaurs seem to have invented feathers in the first place, and birds just got a lucky hand-me-down from those dinosaur ancestors. And yeah, Cranberry K8. Cranberry Kate, thank you so much for the Prime sub. I appreciate it. Thanks for supporting Science Outreach here on Twitch. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And Flickster says, Danny, how do you remember those weird names? They're not weird. What do you mean? They're like, they're like old friends. Of course I remember those names. Shoot, I've been reading about dinosaurs since I learned how to read in kindergarten, first grade, whatever. And I've been studying dinosaurs for, I won't say how long, but it's a number of years. In the same way that somebody who's really into, I don't know, baseball or something can remember all of these different baseball players' names. Like, how do you remember all those names? If it's something that you're really interested in, you just kind of, you retain it. You think about it all the time. It's, they become like old friends to you. Yeah. But yeah, and I don't know if I have a very good memory in general, Charlie's Dragon, but I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah. And Mothproof KT says, I don't think I've seen feathered depictions of dinosaurs with more than 3 toes. I assume because birds have 3 toes and that's fine. Most birds have 4, actually, Mothproof KT. They've got 3 in the front and then 1 in the back called a hallux. That's digit 1 is the one in the back. Yeah, and dinosaurs could have anywhere between 5 and 3 toes. Some dinosaurs lose that first toe, so they just have 3. Most dinosaurs had 4. Well, actually, no, I don't know if that's true. Anyway, yeah. I would kind of love to see a feathered brachiosaur or triceratops. Yeah, we actually do have skin impressions from triceratops, and they probably didn't have feathers, but at least not when they're grown-ups. But there's a chance that the hatchlings did. They were small when they first hatch out of an egg, They'd be emerging from an egg about the size of a football, or smaller, maybe. And so when you're an animal that small, especially if you're warm-blooded, you often need some kind of insulation. So maybe baby triceratops, those hatchlings would have had a fuzzy down, like a baby chick or something. We don't know. It's something that's, one of those questions that we still have for sure, which is exciting. Yeah. And Mizart Rule says, how many sets of teeth did dinosaurs have? Because dinosaurs can lose their teeth like sharks. They would have an unlimited supply. So all throughout their lives, they'd just be getting new teeth all the time. In the same way that, I don't know, people have skin cells or whatever that they replace throughout their lifetime. It's the same with dinosaurs and teeth. Sharks are the same way too. It's not like there's a set number and then they run out at some point. No. For as long as they're alive, they're always growing new sets of teeth. Yeah, that's, I think, true for most animals with teeth. Mammals, like us, are weird. Like, only having 2 sets of teeth for your entire life is bizarre. And, well, actually, maybe we'll talk to Fisher about why mammals do that. But, yeah. And there you go, Crimson Carnothoris. There have been a lot of depictions of Pachyrhinosaurus with kind of a shaggy musk ox, sort of feathery look. Yeah. And Mothproof KT said, did T-Rex have the one in the back of their foot? Yeah, that's called the hallux, digit 1. So that's equivalent to your big toe. Tyrannosaurus had that. Most theropod dinosaurs have that. Only a few groups of dinosaurs lose their hallux, bipedal dinosaurs. Ornithomimosaurs lose it. So your ostrich dinosaurs don't have a hallux anymore. Dinosaurs like Dryosaurus also lose it for some reason. It might have something to do with like fast running speed. Yeah. And let me think. I can't think of any other theropods off the top of my head that lose their hallux, except for certain kinds of bird do. Emus don't have it anymore. Cassowaries don't have it. Ostriches definitely don't. Ostriches only have 2 toes on each foot. It's just digits 3 and 4, I think. Yeah. And let's see. Oh, and Mayor Space says most mammals have finite teeth, but manatees just keep on growing molars that move from the back to the front. Ooh, Mayor Space, I think you're mostly right there. But let's go ask our resident mammal expert here. Let's go see what my only begotten son Fisher has to say about that. Yeah. Fisher, what do you know about the marching molars in Afrotheres?
So it occurs in, I believe, only one clade of Afrotheres. If you don't know what an Afrothere is, the word Afro refers to Africa, and There is Latin, I think, for beast.
Yeah,
is Latin or Greek? Yeah. It's one of the two.
Yeah. It's all Greek.
So the Afrotheres are one of 4 major coastal mammals, which make up most of the mammals that you are going to think of or encounter if you live anywhere but Australia.
Get lost, Australians. This isn't for you.
So the Afrotheres and the Xenarthrans, which are the South American mammal group, which includes like sloths and anteaters and stuff. Armadillos are also in that group.
Yeah.
Are the southern mammals, and within Afrotheres we have 2 clades again. We have Afroinsectophilia, which are things like aardvarks and elephant shrews and golden moles, a lot of small insectivorous mammals. And then we have Panungulata, which are the African ungulates. And that includes hyraxes, and now when we exclude hyraxes from Panungulata, we get the group called Tethotheres, which includes today the Sirenians, which are your dugongs and manatees, as well as your elephants, which are part of a group called Proboscidea, referring to their trunk, or proboscis.
And so these guys, Sirenia plus Proboscidea,
that makes up Tethotheria. Which is named for the Tethys Seaway, which used to cut through Africa and the Middle East. It's kind of an extension of the Mediterranean today, although the Mediterranean is not part of the ancient Tethys Seaway. It kind of is lying
I love all these caveats.
Similarly to where it was. Anyway, so within Tethotheria, one of the diagnostic traits is that they have marching molars, which is the only, within mammals, it's the only form of tooth replacement that happens more than once. So if you remember having your baby teeth and having your adult teeth, that's all you get. And that's the case for most mammals. Because we have our precise occlusion, we can't replace our teeth more than once. But Sirenians and Proboscideans have bypassed this. Instead, they have up to 6 sets of molars that emerge from the back of the jaw, and as the molars get ground down, they pop out and are shed and replaced by a different pair.
Nice.
And because both of these are grazing herbivores, and grasses contain both little tiny particles of silica, which is the same thing that sand and glass is made of. Pretty hard, pretty tough on your teeth, which are not permanent. They're hard, but they're not indestructible.
We end up eating a lot of sand and stuff out here in the field. That's probably not good for our
Over
teeth.
time,
So
your teeth will get worn down.
Yeah.
And that's the cause of death for a lot of zoo animals that eat grasses, like zebras and antelope and stuff. Most mammals will bypass this issue by having higher crowns on their teeth, so their teeth are really tall, and so they can afford to just grind them down over the course of their lifetime. But elephants and manatees and dugongs instead just replace those back molars over time. It's still a limited set. They only have 6 or so pairs.
Right.
But they don't have to have the really high crown teeth that you see in a lot of grazing ungulates.
Gotcha.
Because instead they just replace their teeth more than you would expect for a mammal.
Cool. Thanks, Fisher. Yeah, nice. So, Mayor Space, that was the point I was trying to make, is that, well, manatees do have marching molars. They only get 6 sets of them throughout their lifetime, and then they're done. So, yeah.
I don't know about the silica content in seagrass.
I would imagine it'd be less than in land.
I don't even know if it's a real grass.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're still, taking up a lot of grit and sand from the seabed, and I mean, people have postulated that that's actually the main cause of the tooth wear. Is not from the microsilica that's in the phytoglyphs that are within the plants themselves, but actually just the dust and dirt that comes out while you're cropping that vegetation close to the ground.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Fish.
Yeah, no problem.
Nice. Yeah. So again, resident mammal expert Fisher McDermott here, who is going to be joining the light side. Actually, going to be working on dinosaurs. It seems, even if they are avian dinosaurs, birds. But that'll be neat. We'll see if we can catch up with Fisher in the fall when he started his turn to the dinosaur side. But yeah, let's see. Let's see, what did we have? Let me catch up to chat here. Scrolling. And, Alexander Morrison says, old Crocs and Gators will have their teeth replaced so slowly that it's borderline toothless once they reach a very old age. I didn't know that. Really? Huh. I guess that would make sense that it would be in captivity that they would do that. Whereas in the wild, they might not live to be that long. They might not live to be that old, excuse me. Interesting. It might also just be something to do with their metabolism, where, like, really going to be growing anymore. And so that might also be in placement, where if their body is just not growing as much, other things like tooth replacement might slow way, way, way down as well. I don't think we have evidence of this in dinosaurs, but again, Mesozoic dinosaurs didn't live in captivity. So, yeah, anywho. Tolkien Otaku says, I knew manatees were related to elephants, I just didn't know about the teeth similarities. Yeah, pretty cool, right? Yeah. And Paul, etc. says, so should Hollywood have checked better about the feathers issue? Here's the thing, is that when Jurassic Park was being made in the early 1990s, when that film was in production, my old boss, Jack Horner, who was the paleontological consultant on that film, he wanted the velociraptors in that movie to have feathers. And apparently Steven Spielberg and other people said, no, you can't do that. So, I don't know. Jack wasn't willing to die on that hill, but he did apparently, I think I heard him say this, but I could be misremembering, that when some of the animators had an idea where, like, yeah, we want the velociraptors to have like a forked tongue that goes out and smells the air like a snake. Jack was like, no, you cannot do that. I will quit on the spot. And they're like, okay, we won't. And it's a good thing he did that, because that would have completely... One of the, themes of the first Jurassic Park film is that birds are dinosaurs. And that dinosaurs, many of them were very bird-like. So Jack didn't get to have feathers on them, but he did get to prevent them from being snakes or lizards, which was a real victory. If that had been included in that film, it would have been, it would have, I think, significantly detracted from the realism there. So yeah, let's see. And RB42 says, what? You met Horner? Yeah, I used to work for him. Yeah. I was trained at Museum of the Rockies in Bozeman. That was his museum. And Mothproof KT, have you not heard me say that before? Yeah. No, I used to work for Jack. his final doctoral student, Denver Fowler, was kind of my mentor for a long time. So I wouldn't see Jack that often, but he was always around. Sometimes I'd go and ask him questions and stuff. Sometimes he would visit us in the field. But yeah, you could say that in some ways Jack Horner is kind of my academic grandfather. Yeah. And let's see. Game Over says, I wonder if they even had the tech to do feathers looking real enough. I bet you they could have pulled it off. They did some incredible things in Jurassic Park in that film that nobody thought was possible. I bet you they could have pulled it off. Yeah. I don't know how much more difficult feathers are to do than scales, but I do know that there are people that... there's this one guy who... it's just one person. He decided to redo the raptors in the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. And he did all of the animations himself on his own computer, and it looks phenomenal. I know this is in the year 2024, so it's been more than 3 decades since Jurassic Park came out, and personal computing technology has certainly improved a great deal since then. But yeah, I don't know. It looked really good when he did it. I betcha those wizards at ILM could have pulled it off. If they had been instructed to do so. And Jurassic Park is still my favorite movie. It's a 90s masterpiece, says Digital Cindy. It's a phenomenal film. It's really good. It's a modern classic. Yeah. I've got some quarrels with it. For the most part, I think... I don't know. The first Jurassic Park film especially was really good for dinosaur science. I've talked about this before. But... prior to that movie coming out, there would be maybe one dinosaur paleontology job that would open up every year, something like that. There were not very many jobs. And suddenly Jurassic Park comes out. People are flocking to museums to go see dinosaurs. There's a lot of public interest, and museums start hiring more dinosaur paleontologists. Suddenly there are 5 or 6 or 10 dinosaur paleontologist positions opening up every year at different places like that. So it really was a boon for our field. Yeah. That being said, dinosaur paleontology jobs are still extraordinarily scarce. Last September, when we went to the Alf Museum and ran into curator Andy Farkey there, he gave us kind of a almost depressing statistic. He said that you are more likely to get a job as an NFL quarterback than you are as a dinosaur. NFL quarterback positions that open up every year than there are dinosaur paleontology positions at museums or universities. There's not very many. I've been very lucky in that I've been able to basically make my own job out of scratch here on Twitch. Full time, this is how I make my living. This is how I'm able to put food on the table as a dinosaur paleontologist. I don't have to compete in that academic rat race or do anything like that. It's been real good, and I'm incredibly grateful to Twitch as a platform and to especially this community, those viewers who have supported me. This is a dream come true, and I'm only here because of you guys, so thank you for that. Yeah. And we're getting a raid in, are we? Yeah. Let's see. Hello, raiders from Empress Freya. How are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. We're out here in Wyoming digging up fossils. We've only got a few dinosaur elements at this particular quarry here. This is the Turtle Hill locality. We're getting all kinds of beautiful microvertebrates. So all kinds of little critters that would have lived alongside dinosaurs, swimming around in the lakes and the rivers and the swamps. We're getting lots of cool freshwater fishes, turtles, the occasional little squamate bit, so like lizards and snake pieces, and even a little mammal tooth from, a little multi-tuberculate mammal, a critter closely related, in the grand scheme of things at least, it's a mammal, to our own ancestors. since we as human beings are mammals.
Ontogeny.
So Fisher and Ava are working down there, and I'm going to cease distracting them for right now and ask you if you've got any questions, chat. Yeah. This is dope, says Empress Ray. Thank you. Hey, I really appreciate the raid, and I hope you had an excellent stream. It's wonderful to have you here. Yeah. Tolkien Odaku says, you may not be as well paid as an NFL quarterback, but I think your legacy will be far more scientifically significant. I certainly hope so. I don't know. If anybody's trying to get wealthy, do not become a dinosaur paleontologist. But if you want to do something really cool with your life and be able to uncover some of the myths of Earth's past, new information about the history of life on our incredible planet, then this is a great way to do that, you know? We're really lucky here to be part of this project where we're kind of opening up a very understudied geological formation. We're finding new dinosaurs here. We're kind of exploring a blank spot on the map, so to speak. And we've had a lot of success doing that. Huge props to expedition leader, project lead Ethan Cowgill for kind of envisioning this whole endeavor. Yeah, he's got some leadership chops. Holy cow. Remember that name, everybody. Ethan Cowgill. You're going to be hearing a lot more of it over the next few years, I'm sure, as we start to get some of these things published. And, yeah, talk about your Jack Horners and your Paul Serenos and your Phil Currys. Ethan Cowgill is going to be one of those names. Just you wait. And Mayor Space says paleontologists also tend to date fewer cheerleaders than quarterbacks do? I don't know, Mayor Space. Are you sure about that? My girlfriend in college was a cheerleader, or she was back in high school at least. Yeah. Camaro King says, when was your last shower? May 30th. No, May 20... Did I take one that morning? Probably May 29th. Yeah. And at this rate, I won't be getting another shower until June 30th. So it'd be a full month. Yeah. And let's see. And Ash says Ethan's really motivated, which is always a great trait to have. Absolutely. No, he is driven, and he knows how to get stuff done. So, again, remember that name, Ethan Cowgill. You can say that you knew him back when he was an undergraduate, because he's going to be a real mover and shaker. He already is, frankly. Mayor Space says, but you didn't play football? I played football in high school. Soccer, as we say in the States. Yeah. Yeah. And Lilith Hobo and Nutsons. Yeah, so I've gone through, I think, 5 packages of wet wipes so far this month. Yeah, at nighttime when it's time to go to sleep, before I crawl in my sleeping bag, yeah, I do like a, full body wet wipe. I guess you could call it a dry shower with wet wipes. Moist shower? But yeah, so I've been staying pretty clean, and I think I smell pretty all right. Use a lot of deodorant too. Doing okay. Yeah. You'd never guess that I've been without a shower for the whole month, right? Been working all day in the sun for 25 days straight now, as of today. Yeah. Wet wipe gang, says Ephraimic. Yes, indeed. Yeah. And Mayor Space says you bathe the same way the astronauts do. Well, there's a lot more gravity involved here, but, sure. Point taken. Yeah. And Camaro King says, is your camp campers or tents? Tents, yeah. We've got like 20-something tents in our camp. We've got a big crew this year, bigger than we've ever had. And, yeah, but I've got a pretty nice tent, I gotta say. I've been very lucky. Given that I'm out in the field for like more than 2 months this year, no, it'll actually be about 3 months, given that I spent 2 weeks down in St. George. So for this whole year, yeah, about 3 months. I spent about a quarter of my year, I guess, sleeping in a tent at night, it pays to have a good tent. So I've got a really nice canvas tent. It stands up to the wind and the heat and everything else. I'm lucky to have it. And Jogi says, really cool what you're doing. Much respect. Stay hydrated. Thank you, Jogi. I appreciate the 3 months of support. Thank you, thank you. Let me go get hydrated right now. Let's get some water into me. And Hogan, I didn't realize the gravity is only reduced by 10% on the ISS. Huh. And Mayor Space, yeah. So I've read that the International Space Station smells like a cross between a locker room and a hospital. Apparently it's just kind of filthy up there. Like there's a lot of bacteria. Ugh. And Crimson Carnotaurus says, have you ever thought of convert a panel van into a van life build? Stuff's too expensive. I can't afford that. No. I have the car that I have. I paid like $4,400 to get a 2008 Toyota Prius. I can sleep in that if it's hellishly hot, because you can run the AC in that all night and not deplete the battery because it's a hybrid. But no, I'm much more content. I don't want to get like a big stupid vehicle that is a big gas hog or anything. I really like the setup that I've got. I get 40 plus miles to the gallon in the Prius, and it's really, safe and comfortable to drive. Yeah, I don't know. And then I just load all my gear into that and sleep in a tent. That's how it's done out here. There wouldn't be enough space in like a camper van or something like that. It just would be completely impractical for this kind of lifestyle, in my opinion. Yeah. But yeah, and Heraldosaurus Rex, thank you for the support there. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Thanks for keeping me here online. Thank you for supporting science outreach here on Twitch. Let me get some water here. Yeah. In that sense, is battery still 10,000 to replace? I think they're down to about 900 now, actually, for a Prius. I don't know. Mine's got close to 200,000 miles on it with the original battery. No signs of quitting. So, yeah, it's like the most cost-effective vehicle that you could purchase. They're nuts. A Prius it's the ultimate car. I do a ton of off-roading with it too. Yeah, it was really funny. The other day we were driving out to the Purple Puzzle site, and I don't know why, but there was like a huge burly Jeep Wrangler with giant off-road tires on it, and it was like just kind of barely making it up this road. I think maybe it was just too heavy or something, and I just went screaming past it like it was standing still. I wonder what the driver thought. But yeah. Anywho. And Heraldosaurus Rex, 25 days. I should say that in the title. But yeah. Hogan says that many miles on the original battery is crazy, but what I've come to expect from Toyota, yeah, I mean, they're great. Like, I know people who have gone 500,000 miles in a Prius, and they're still on the original battery with no issues whatsoever. Every year before I leave for the field, I make sure to take it in for like a full inspection and checkup. And this year they're like, yeah, we couldn't find anything. So we tightened the steel underbody skid plates. We tightened the bolts on those. That's all they could find to do. And it's like the third or fourth year in a row that it's been like that. It's like, I'm sorry. We tried to find something wrong with it and we couldn't. But yeah. And hey, Science Streams, how are you doing, Balint? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to Wyoming. We've been enjoying really nice weather today. A little bit warmer than yesterday, but we've got a light breeze today. I think our high today is in like the mid-70s, maybe 80 if it gets hotter. But yeah, it's been beautiful. We've been really lucky, and we're finding good stuff at the site too. And Ash says, what are you anticipating finding in Utah? Anything as monumental as the almond? Almost, yeah. So we're going to be digging in the earliest Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation in Utah. Rock's about 142 million years old, give or take. And we've got, we think, 2 new species of iguanodont dinosaur from this quarry. On the last day of our field season last year, 2024, we found like half a dozen big limb bones, and we were like, oh shoot, we're gonna have to stay up until like 3 a.m. on the last night trying to jacket these and get them out. And we decided, nope, let's just jacket them and bury them. So as soon as we get back this year, when we open up the quarry, there should be a ton of bones waiting for us. And yeah, so we're gonna hit the ground running. That'll be July 15th that we get out there this year. So I'll probably start streaming on the 16th. We'll spend the first day like setting up camp and everything, and in the afternoon, and then the next morning we'll go open up the quarry. I'll see if I can stream that day. It's gonna be good. So we're expecting good things for sure. There's also tantalizing little hints, little bits and pieces of a huge theropod dinosaur, a huge meat eater from that same quarry. I think we have like a quadrate and then a couple of teeth from like a giant Carcharodontosaur. So there is a huge meat-eating dinosaur lurking in there too, and maybe this year we'll get lucky and we'll find some good pieces of it. Who knows? We'll see. Yeah. And yeah. And how big approximately? I mean, this is a critter that's probably 30 feet long. I'm guessing by the size of I think it was a quadrate that Ethan found. So yeah. There's also been isolated teeth found of a Carcharodontosaur type theropod in the Cedar Mountain in that same valley. But I think the first bone from it that we have is I want to say it's a quadrate. We'll have to ask Ethan, I forget. But yeah. Got a 25 stream streak. Don't plan to break it. Nice, Ash. This is the coolest thing I've seen on Twitch. Appreciate that. Phenomenal. Here. Let me grab a screenshot of that, actually. Nope. Yeah. Whoops. Delete. I messed that up. There we go. Nice. Yeah. And could it maybe be an Acrocanthosaurus ancestor? Potentially, Crimson Carnotaurus. Yeah. We don't know. It might be something kind of like, somebody look up Siach. Is Siach from the Cedar Mountain Formation? I want to say it is. It could be the ancestor of Siach, potentially. That's S-I-A-T-S. That's how you spell it, but it's pronounced Siach. That's another, I think, Ute word. We're speaking of dinosaur names based on languages that are not Latin or Greek. Siach is one of those. But yeah. And let's see, we got a question from Camaro King. Did bats evolve from dinosaurs? If so, which one? They did not, no. So bats are a kind of mammal. And here, let's go consult with our resident mammal expert, who is also named after a mammal, Fisher. Fisher, we got a question in chat. Did bats evolve from a dinosaur?
No.
There's no nice way to put it. It's just no, definitely not.
No.
Yeah. So where did bats come from?
Well, we kind of don't know. So the first bat fossils show up the early to mid Eocene. We have some not too far from the Green River Formation.
Yeah.
And they show up looking like the bats that we're familiar with today, and it's similar with the long fingers that you have. The skin attaches between them, forms a patagium. They use that to fly. Very different from a bird's wing. More similar to a pterosaur's wing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they show up pretty much fully formed in the Eocene, and we do not know where they came from. We genetically know where bats fall in the mammal family tree. They are closest to ungulates and carnivorans.
Which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like hoofed mammals
Yes.
and toothy bitey mammals.
Yeah. So our rhinos are closer to bats than they are to primates or rodents or even shrews and moles and other insectivorous things like
Wild. Because there was an old idea that bats were actually related to primates and to rodents, I think?
Insectivores.
Yeah.
So there's two kind of classifications of bats based on their morphology. There's the microbats, which are the little insectivorous ones that fly around at night and echolocate, and you have the megabats, or the fruit bats, which have big eyes.
Like flying foxes,
Yep,
yeah.
they fly around in the day. They live in the tropics. They grow quite large. They eat mostly fruit. And we thought, because fruit bats resemble so closely some of the most basal primates, like lemurs and bush babies and that kind of stuff, and their close relatives like colugos, which are another gliding mammal from Southeast Asia, that it was possible that the megabats, the fruit bats, were close to primates, and the microbats were close to things like shrews and moles, the insectivores.
Yeah.
But once we started being able to sequence genomes, we found that no, the bats are all one group, and the megabats are closer to some microbats than others. There's two groups of bats, Yinterocheiroptera and Yangocheiroptera.
Nice. Got the terminology here, too. Yeah. Clade names.
Yep. And I'm trying to remember which one's which, but the fruit bats, the megabats, and some microbats are in one, and then the rest of the microbats are in the other. So being a microbat seems to be maybe the basal characteristic, and then one branch of that
sense, I guess, yeah.
became the fruit bats.
Sorry, go ahead.
We don't know where they come from. Again, they probably evolved from some sort of small, generalized shrew-like mammal living in trees, maybe using their forelimbs to glide, much like
kind of like a colugo.
Or a flying squirrel or something like that.
Yeah.
And eventually they learned to use powered flight instead, and from there became the only flying mammals that we have today. But yeah, they're one of the mysteries of the mammal world, is the origin of bats. But they're very successful. They make up a really large percent of
like 20% of
mammal diversity. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's nuts.
They're only behind rodents.
Yeah.
They live almost everywhere.
All continents except Antarctica, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
They're one of the very few placental mammals to live in Australia natively. They're the only terrestrial mammals native to New Zealand.
Nice.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yes, they're not dinosaurs. So
Yeah.
the last common ancestor between bats and dinosaurs was
back in like the Carboniferous, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Some sort of basal tetrapod.
Yeah.
Basal amniote.
Yeah.
Living in the Mississippian or Pennsylvanian
Yeah.
in the coal swamps.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Fisher.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So, here, this gives me another opportunity. Let me catch up to chat real quick and make sure I didn't miss a huge raid or anything. Let's see. And Dave Nevia says, why do they think bats are two different clades in the first place? Well, because, there are two clades. There's the megabats and microbats.
Yeah, it was their morphology.
Yeah, so that's just the way they look. Yeah.
Microbats resemble insectivores very closely, and the megabats look like lemurs and colugos.
Yeah.
And so they thought, oh, well, these things are skeletally quite similar, but it's just a matter of convergent evolution.
Yeah. But
fruit bats and prosimians both eat fruit, and microbats and insectivores both eat insects, and so they have similar shaped teeth.
Yeah.
And so they're...
It's just kind of coincidence that they happen to look like those different groups.
Yeah, and so you can't always rely on morphology for taxonomy.
Sometimes it'll trick you.
One of the rules here.
Yeah, which is lousy for us as paleontologists because, when we're working on fossils like this, they're way too old to have any DNA. And so all we have to work on is morphology. But sometimes morphology can trick you if you're not careful. So, yeah. And, let's see. Fruit bats eat fruit? No, they're made out of fruit. That's why they're called fruit bats. They definitely eat fruit, yes. Yeah. Well, fruit, right? Like aren't there those, the bats that pollinate the, agave and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're nectivorous bats. They're
they eat nectar.
Predatory bats. They eat fish and frogs and other small vertebrates. But I think the fruit bats, or I think Pteropidae, I think is the family of the fruit bats.
Okay.
I think they're obligate frugivores. Maybe they take insects or something like that as well.
Yeah.
But I think they're one of the very few mammals that has full color vision because they're frugivores.
It's them and primates, right?
Yep.
And maybe a certain kind of squirrel, as we were talking about. But yeah, those Indian purple squirrels. What do you got to drink there?
We've got some beautiful acetone that looks conspicuously like limeade.
It does look like limeade.
Especially given the bottle. But I'm trying to thin out some of our B72 because it was getting a little bit bubbly and it wasn't quite seeping into the bone as much as I would have liked it to.
Gotcha.
And so this is what you have to do every so often.
Thin it out, yeah.
Every so often you have to add acetone to your glue to make sure it stays thin.
Yeah.
Because that really thick stuff isn't as good for consolidating the bones.
Exactly. It just sits on the surface rather than seeping in.
So, as glue bottles sit in the sun, the acetone will evaporate.
Yeah.
And you'll have to refill it. So we try our best to keep them shaded, but
Just like put them up in the rat hole over there.
Not always possible.
Yeah. But yeah. I'm impressed that the acetone doesn't just eat right through that plastic bottle. It's got to be... It's that particular kind of plastic, I guess, is resistant to it. I wonder how we figured that out. I don't know enough about chemistry or plastics to know which kinds of plastics you can store acetone in. But yeah, I'm glad that the Simply Lemonade bottles seem to work. Yeah. Let's see. Mythic Mexican says, are vampire bats related to vampires? I'm not sure anything's related to vampires, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure they're real, but anyway. And Kenny says, I love science. I do too, yeah. It could be because the bottle was made to hold citric acid, says Ash. Perhaps. I actually don't know. Yeah, it would... That would be a good thing to know for future field work, is like, what kind of plastic do you need to hold acetone? Like, if I knew the name right off the top of my head, then we could, we could just use certain kinds of plastic bottles without having to experiment with them. Be useful information. Maybe somebody in chat knows this. But, yeah. Polypropylene, maybe, says Nutsense. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Any material scientists in the chat? Any plasticologists? Any chemists? Anywho. Yeah. And let's see. And Deb, like glass woodwork, yeah, certainly. But glass bottles are heavy, and it's hard to find them big enough to be able to use for a lot of acetone. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. Tolkien Otaku says, I have a bottle of nail polish remover somewhere in the house. There you go. Yeah, that's mostly acetone. A lot of nail polish remover is acetone plus other compounds. They might have scent to it. It might have... it might have scent to it. I don't know what else it would have. Yeah. Nail polish remover, it'll say like something percent acetone, and the acetone is what actually removes the nail polish. And what are those pointy squirt bottles made of? I'm not sure, Eric. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. Let's see. The cup developed a whole... Exactly, Cat, a time traveler. Yeah. Red Solo cups. You don't want to put acetone in those. I don't know enough about plastics to really be able to offer any insight here. Yeah. Anywho. Volman's brand milk or tea in the store. There you go, Mother Turd's nursery rhymes. Interesting. We actually did have some empty jars, like glass jars, in camp today, and I think they got thrown away. We were even asking, like, does anybody need these for anything? And we didn't, so we threw them out. But, yeah. The reason why we use acetone in our glue, actually, is, well, here, I could talk about that for a second. Let's go down there and take a look. We use specialized kinds of polyvinyl acetate glue in the field and in the laboratory, too. Our particular kind that we're using is called acryloid B72. And so this is a plastic-based glue. There's these little plastic beads that you get in a package, and then you dissolve them in acetone in order to make a really thin, kind of permeating glue. And so the way that this works is, since the plastic dissolves inside of the acetone, here, we keep it in like little containers like this. There we go, yeah, B72 thin. This has got a lot of acetone to thin it out. And so you put that onto a surface. Do we have a fossil we could...
This one.
There we go, yeah, like that.
I'm gonna put it on this
Nice.
little chunk.
Yeah, so just put a few drops on there, and then I think basically the acetone kind of acts as a carrier, and it helps the plastic to go and permeate the bone, and then the acetone evaporates away because it's so thin. Leaves the plastic. So it's strengthening the fossil from the inside out. Of B72 in acetone for different. If you want to be able to like adhere things together, like you want to mix it really, really thick with not very much acetone and a lot of acryloid. But if you want to make it really thin, so it'll permeate really well, you add a lot of acetone. But this is kind of standard procedure when we're working on fossils in the field or in the lab. In large part because it's stable over a long period of time. So it's what we would call archival quality. You know, it's not like it deteriorates over time very much. And the real kicker is it's reversible. So if you ever like make a mistake and you're like, shoot, I put too much glue on this, I want to undo it, you just add more acetone and it redissolves the glue, and you can start over after the acetone evaporates. So it's pretty cool how that works. And yeah, we don't have any of those mustard bottles here at this site, Golganek, but that is my favorite conveyance for, especially when we're working on dinosaurs where you need a lot of glue for big bones. Plockman's mustard containers are the best you can get, in my opinion. Polypropylene, I think it was in Breaking Bad. Hydrofluoric acid melting. There you go. Yeah, and as acetone just evaporates out, exactly, leaving behind the plastic, Pate B. That's how it works. Yeah, penetrative consolidant glue. Yeah. And you scored an air scribe. Very cool, Chaotic Time Traveler. That's really neat. Wow, air scribes are not always easy to get, so well done. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah. And let's see. Frequent sun decomposition. Interesting, that sounds. Okay. Resistant but not proof. Huh. Yeah. No PET. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I should know a little bit more about plastics than I do, because I do a lot of 3D printing at home. I usually use PLA, polylactic acid, I think. I use that kind of filament for my 3D prints. I'm really happy with that. But you can also use, what is it, PETG, I think? Although I've been told that smells really bad and it's much more expensive. I don't think I could print ABS with my printer at home. But ABS does have the benefit of, if you want to get rid of the print lines, you can just paint a little bit of acetone over it and just barely kind of dissolve the surface and get rid of those characteristic 3D print lines. Yeah, instead I have to use a 2-part smoothing compound for my 3D prints when I'm printing with PLA. But I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. Let's see. I do, Saimiri, unless you mean, do I model myself? No. I do a lot of sculpting and like 3D scanning in order to make digital models so I can 3D print them. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot of that this year when I get back from the field. I've got some exciting projects coming up. I've been teaching myself how to use Blender, which is a lot of fun. Previously, all of my sculpting has been in a program called Sculptress, which is by the same folks who make ZBrush. But I use ZBrush and I really don't like it, and I was treated very badly by that company, where they kind of scammed me out of a few $100s because you try to cancel your subscription and then they say it's canceled and then it isn't canceled and they keep charging you. And then they changed their company name so that it's got a different name on the credit card statement. Don't get me started. Oh boy. So Pixelogic can go take a hike. It's not Pixelogic anymore. It's I don't even know what the new company name is. They keep changing it. It's rotten. Anyway, Blender is open source. It's free. It's so much better. So that's what I've been learning, and I really like it. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. We've got 377 people in the chat. Surely we've got some questions about fossils here. Let me get some water. And, yeah, Maxon, that's it, Cymeri. Yeah, gugh. Rotten company. They're awful. Let's get some water. And Camaro King says, what's the deepest you have had to dig? Generally, we don't dig very deep when we're even digging up a big dinosaur, because the way that we find fossils is we find them on the surface. So say we're looking for a new fossil site in this area up here. What you do is you walk along and you look for fragments of bone sticking out on the surface. So anything that might look unusual, like, what is it? There's actually a piece of fossil leaf right here. Yeah, just look for a little, anything that might be unusual, might look like bone texture. Is bone texture? No, there's lichen growing on that. It can fool the eye. Anyway, you do that, you find some fragments of bone. You follow them up the hill like breadcrumbs. And then where they stop, hopefully that's the source. You dig in right there, and if you're really lucky, you've got, you know, an associated skeleton, sometimes even a whole animal in there. That's how all of our sites here in the Almond Formation have been discovered, is by prospecting like that. Just walking along, looking at the ground, till you find some fragments of bone. You might walk, I don't know, I've spent a whole afternoon, or most of a day, out prospecting and not found a single scrap of bone. Some areas are just really poor, and some areas are really rich. Sometimes you find bone all over the place. There are certain sites where, you know, you find one site, and then just around the corner, there's another dinosaur sticking out of the ground, and another, and another. So yeah, we do often have to dig, but it's usually not deep. We're usually digging into a hill. So like, say that we found, pretend that this is a hadrosaur caudal vertebra right here, a centrum from a caudal vert. Can you see it? Let's pretend. I don't have a real one here. There's not a lot of dinosaurs at this particular spot. At other sites, I could show you fragments of bone all over the place. We don't have those here. Pretend that this is one, and it's going in right there. So if you've got a whole hadrosaur skeleton under here, we might have to go back 15 or 20 feet and just remove all of that rock so that we can get down to the bone layer where the bones are. So yeah, it's not really digging deep as much as it is digging wide most of the time. You're digging a big wide hole, trying to expose a really wide area so you can dig down from the top and then basically expose the bones from the top down. You never wanted to go tunneling into a hillside or anything like that. That's how you end up damaging bones. They'll come out in pieces that way. If you're tunneling underneath them, they fall down, they break. You want to work from the top down. Does that make sense? I hope that answers your question and gives you a sense for how these things work. Yeah. And, let's see, Ghostosaurus says, thanks for that info. As a graphic designer, trying to learn 3D modeling, I'll make sure to avoid their products. Yeah, since they got purchased by Maxon, yeah, they've been going downhill. I've heard a ton of complaints from people about ZBrush. It's too expensive. They don't offer refunds if they screw things up for you. It's just, if you can help it. Blender it might be a little bit trickier to learn, but there's great tutorials online. So actually, yeah, Ghostosaurus, look it up right now if you get the chance. There's a YouTube tutorial series that I found that I really enjoy, and that's teaching me how to use Blender. Just look up Blender donut tutorial. You learn how to model a donut. So you're starting off with really simple but then you add the icing, and you learn how to add the sprinkles on it, and you learn how to color it and paint it, and it's really intuitive the way that they teach it. Even though Blender itself is not a particularly intuitive program, this is a really well laid out tutorial. and you're kind of learning all of those basic skills as you go. It's good stuff. I'm excited to go home and try that again because it was a lot of fun. I think I've forgotten a lot of the controls since I've been out in the fields for so long, and I've just been so busy. I was learning this back in like April, and then set it down and probably forgot most of that stuff. So I gotta refresh myself. Oh, I made the donut. I just need to keep doing more tutorials. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Cool. You know what you're doing then. Awesome. You're more advanced than I am. Yeah. And edit video and audio in Blender too. It's an incredible program. Yeah. Anywho. Yeah. See what else I missed. Yazdigerd the fourth says, does any research team use a drone with an expert trained neural net to spot likely outcroppings? No. No. That's the thing, is that we sometimes use satellite photos and like Google Earth and stuff like that to try and spot outcrop before we go out to a field area. So that can be useful just to see like, hey, what's out there, I guess? How much exposed rock is there? That'll tell you things that a geological map won't. The geological map just shows you the age of the bedrock in any particular spot, but it won't show you whether there's trees obscuring it or whether there's grass or a Walmart parking lot over it or whatever. So you can use, Google Earth for figuring out that super basic stuff, but you're not going to be finding fossils on Google Earth or by using a drone. In order to be able to like actually discover fossils and find a new site, you have to be out walking and you have to be picking things up and looking at their texture and going, that's not bone. You're doing a lot of that. That's honestly it might be the most difficult part of fieldwork, is being able to find new sites and be able to identify what kinds of organisms are represented there just based on a few fragments. So I've worked with people in the field, like in the Hell Creek and Judith River formations, people like Jack Horner and Denver Fowler, who can find like a single little fragment of bone and go, oh, okay, this is a fragment of a neural spine of a thessaliosaur. Because they can see, like, okay, we've got symmetry along here. There's the curve of the neural spine. There's the neural canal. And then, I know based on this texture that this is an ornithischian dinosaur. And based on the size and proportions, it looks like a thessaliosaur. From a single fragment of bone, they can do that. And that takes a tremendous amount of experience and practice. Yeah. So again, sometimes you're, in places like the Hell Creek Formation, you might be talking about dinosaurs that are the size of a bus, and they have hundreds of bones. And each of those bones can fracture in a million billion different ways, and they can be weathered in all kinds of crazy ways too. So being able to pick up a single fragment and go, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is part of the skull of an Edmontosaurus. It looks like maybe this is a fragment of the lacrimal bone there. This is really important. We should spend the afternoon digging a test pit here and seeing if we find any more of the skull. Being able to make those judgment calls based on IDs that you make in the field, that's an incredible skill, and it's hard won. And it's not something that I think technology might ever be able to replicate. That's just human expertise right there. Yeah. Sounds like something we've seen Jim do regularly, says Ash. Oh, being able to like identify things in the field? Absolutely, yeah. Now, Jim is also very, very good at that. Yeah. And let's see. Wombat Hole says, if you've located a site, geography should point you in the direction of investigation for new places to dig. No, you basically have to, there's a lot of luck involved, honestly. In a place like this, when we're digging in the Almond Formation here in Wyoming, we know that we're supposed to be targeting the Almond Formation. And so you have to be able to read the rocks to make sure that you're in the right spot. So place like this, you go too low and you're no longer in the almond formation. So you got to be paying attention to the changes in the rocks. You go up high and then you start getting into like the Erickson sandstone. That's, no longer almond formation. You're not going to find dinosaurs in there. So there's a lot of geology involved. You have to be able to read the rocks and know where you are in time based on how the rocks are changing, what colors they are, what's the lithology, sandstone, mudstone, siltstone, that kind of thing. It takes practice and it takes geological training. And howdy to you too, Otter Do It. How are you doing? Welcome. And Saimiri says, how long does it take? Well, it depends how big the skeleton is and how complete it is. Let's talk about maybe our ceratopsian dinosaur that we're digging up. That site is on hold right now because we ran into some really hard rock and we might have to go back next year. That's what it looks like. We've only got 5 days left in the season. For our ceratopsian dinosaur, this is going to take years and years and years to be able to have like a skeleton to reconstruct. Because we discovered that back in 2023. So we dug part of it up then. We went back last year and moved a bunch of overburden. Again, we had to remove a bunch of the rock to widen the hole so we'd have more bone layer to investigate and find bones in. So we did part of that last year, found a few more bones, really important ones from the skull. This year, they were starting on overburden and just hit a wall, like literally. So that might be it for 2025. 2026, hopefully we can go back, bring some extra tools, get that really hard rock, and keep digging and find more of the skull and maybe even the skeleton. And then after that, so it's already been, 4 years at that point? The bones have got to make it back to the laboratory. They've got to be cleaned and prepared. Then they've got to be studied. You've got to figure out what kind of dinosaurs it's most closely related to. So like what kind of ceratopsian is most closely related to our ceratopsian? So if you need to say you want to make a skeletal mount in a museum, you want to make a big skeletal display, we'll take the pieces that we have and we'll make exact copies of them in resin. We'll mold them and cast them so that we can put the exact replica on display while the real bones are safe in the back of the museum in a drawer where they can be studied by paleontologists and they won't be yoinked by any unscrupulous museum visitors. So you've got to make replicas of that, and then you might either sculpt the rest of the skeleton, the missing pieces, in order to make a complete one, or you might leave those parts blank and just have the part of the skeleton mounted that we have. There are some displays that do that where they'll also just do the rest of the skeleton that they fill in will be like clear plastic or something, and it'll just be like suggestions like these look kind of like ribs and these look kind of like hips, that kind of thing. It depends how you want to mount it. Or you might go to your most closely related dinosaur and get replicas of the missing pieces and use them to fill in the blanks if you're going to make a museum display with a mounted skeleton. So again, the whole process can take years, it can take decades potentially. At a skeleton on display like that after you originally discover it in the field. I'm trying to get the point across that there's a ton of work that goes into that, and it can take a really long time, and it can be, dozens or potentially hundreds of people involved with something like that. It's a lot of work. But it's worth it at the end of the day. To be able to introduce a new kind of dinosaur to the general public, that's an accomplishment, Yeah. And, anywho, yeah. That's way more than I thought, says Saimiri. Oh, yeah. And that's not even to mention, the complicated parts of mounting the skeleton, just physically. You've got to create a metal armature to hold up the bones, or you just put metal rods through the cast bones But yeah, you have to have a metal framework to hold everything together, and that requires specialized skills sometimes. It's a tremendous work. Yeah. And anywho, yeah. I think we may have had some other questions. Let me look. And Han Fire says, skeletal mount, we can ride them? No, that's what we call a mounted skeleton, is when the skeleton is mounted in place, you know? In the same way that you would like mount a piece of art on the wall, you know? I know you're joking, but I'm trying to clarify here. Yeah. Let's see. Like a camera mount. There you go, Scotty Photon. Yeah. And yeah, welding can be a really important thing. Oh, Claire. That's very sweet. Excellent. And True Love asked a question, what would you say is your greatest find? For me, it would be, and I sound like a broken record here. We talked about this yesterday too. But in 2012, I found a new kind of horned dinosaur in the Judith River Formation of Montana. And yeah, that's the first new kind of dinosaur that I ever discovered. And yeah, pretty excited about it. Again, that was 2012. So that was 13 years ago now. These things can take a long time before they finally get published and announced to the general public. So we're still waiting on that one. Yeah, one of these days. And let's see. Payne Haynes says, well, we've got huge dinosaurs. What is the actual average size? I heard most like chicken-sized. It depends how you determine average. Here's the thing, is that, man, there's a lot of variables that go into that. It's a complicated question. So when we're talking about what is the average size dinosaur, well, at what time? What do you mean? You know, the age of dinosaurs is really long. You know, dinosaurs first evolved about 240 million years ago, give or take. And then they die out, except for birds, 66 million years ago. So you've got a tremendous amount of time in there, and that happens evolutionarily. Dinosaurs start off small. So the or things like Eoraptor, and they're about the size of, I don't know, about the size of a border collie, something like that. And then over time, dinosaurs get bigger and bigger. By the end of the Jurassic, they're enormous. You know, we've got dinosaurs that were well over 100 feet long at the end of the Jurassic period. Yeah. So are we talking about, out of all of the dinosaurs that ever existed, what is the average adult size for them? Small dinosaurs definitely outnumber large dinosaurs in terms of species count. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how to calculate the average size for a dinosaur. I would say probably about the size of a big horse or something like that would be about average size, maybe? But I don't know. In different geological formations, you get different sized dinosaurs on average. So like in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana, like we were talking about earlier, the dinosaurs in the Hell Creek tend to be pretty big. They're not the biggest dinosaurs ever, but each of those different dinosaurs tends to be the largest member of its family. So like Tyrannosaurus is the largest tyrannosaur. Triceratops is possibly the largest ceratopsid. Edmontosaurus might be the largest hadrosaur. Ankylosaurus is one of the bigger ankylosaurs. Pachycephalosaurus is the biggest pachycephalosaur. So on and so forth. Thescelosaurus, I think, is the biggest thescelosaur. Things get really big in the Hell Creek. So the average size for a dinosaur in that formation would be really big. But then you look at like the G-hole biota and the Yixian Formation in China. The average size for a dinosaur you find there is going to be much, much smaller. We've got a ton of very small feathered dinosaurs from the G-hole biota. And yeah, we don't know whether the dinosaurs were just smaller there, or whether there's something about the depositional setting, something about that ancient environment where small critters are just more likely to be preserved than big critters. We do have some big dinosaurs from that ecosystem, but there's so many small dinosaurs, and we're not sure why. We don't know exactly why that is. Is it depositional bias? Is it collection bias? Were they actually just smaller? We don't really know. So it gets tricky. Yeah, it's a complicated question. I'm sorry I don't have a short, pithy answer for you. Yeah. Yeah. And Jim says, is Hell Creek size tied to latest Cretaceous cooling? I don't know, Jim. Yeah. That's certainly an idea. There is an idea. I need to talk to Alessandro Chiarenza about this, because there was a cooling event, I think that's pretty well established, at the end of the Cretaceous. And then there's a warming event because of the Deccan Traps, potentially. So there could be like a big spike in heat right prior to the asteroid hitting. I don't know how well understood all that is right now. But yeah, there is an idea, like, what do we call it? It's like high lattice, the bigger animals tend to get, on average, all other things being equal. So there is a chance that that's true for the Hell Creek. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It might also just be classic Cope's rule, where over time, members of a lineage tend to get larger much of the time. And so the Hell Creek might just be part of there could have been an upward trend in size just because these lineages have been around for a while, and members of those lineages are tending to get bigger, and then they get wiped out before they could get even bigger. So I don't know. But by the way, Jim, it's good to see you. Yeah. How are you doing, Jim? I hope things are good. That's Utah State paleontologist Jim Kirkland there in the chat, if anybody's not aware. Jim discovered and named Utahraptor among many, many other dinosaurs, but Utahraptor might be one that you know. Gastonia, too, that really cool spiky ankylosaur from the Cedar Mountain Formation. Those are some of Jim's babies. Yeah. And from Payne Haynes, thank you, Claire Bear, for reposting that. You spoke earlier about limitations of available dino-specific paleontology jobs. What about the fields that do not specialize in dinosaurs? Are they as hard to come by? They used to be easier than they are today. So back during like the 70s and 80s, and I think into the 90s, there were a lot of jobs for microvertebrate paleontologists. People who study things like fossil plankton and stuff like that. There were a lot of jobs for those folks in like oil companies and that kind of thing. Yeah, because in order to be able to find oil and other minerals, you have to understand the rocks that you're looking at, and you have to know how old they are in order to be able to map things out and find potential fossil fuel deposits. And so they used to hire a bunch of foram paleontologists, diatom specialists, people who study radiolaria and dinoflagellates and things like that. Little tiny plankton-y guys. And as I understand it, at a certain point, they just stopped hiring those paleontologists and just started firing them. And I don't know if there are many paleontologists who are still on the payroll of like oil companies. I don't think there are. I've heard really lousy stories from I know a foram paleontologist who used to work for an oil company, and then one day he shows up to work and his office has just been cleaned out, and he's like, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, you're fired, we don't need you anymore, we found the oil or whatever. Like, this era is over. And they took his like thousands of foram specimens that he had meticulously placed on these glass slides and all organized into these beautiful drawers, just like his lifetime's work, and they literally threw it into a dumpster. So he had to go fish all of these out of a dumpster, and then he went to a paleontology museum, and he says, hey, will you hire me? If you do, you can have this beautiful foram collection, one of the best in the world, and they hired him. And to this day, they have one of the best foram collections in the world. But yeah, it's... as I understand it, there was a point when when oil companies just stopped hiring paleontologists and just started firing them. Yeah. Corporate life is a beautiful thing, says yes, Didgerid. Oh boy, don't get me started. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. And there you go, RB42, yeah. And there you go, community time. Me as well. Yeah, I also. And Samiri says, are there any wild moments or conversations during digging? No, never. We're all very, very serious in the field, and we never joke or laugh or tell body jokes or anything like that. No, we definitely have... it can get pretty wild out here in the field, and it can get wilder in camp, too. Yeah. Speaking of which, here's Ava and Fisher. And, yeah, I don't know, the number of different jokes and stuff like that we... I don't know. There's interesting conversations here in the field, I'll put it that way. But, I don't know, we have tamer jokes, too. Like,
Klona.
Yeah, like, Fisher, how much for that yellow scoop right there?
Dirty plastic. 26 kron.
I don't know where this bit came from, but it's just been a constant source of joy. Fisher's Scandinavian appraisals. But yeah. And Paleo Jim says the body dig site. Yeah, there. Yes, indeed. BAWDY. And Yaz says, can confirm all science people wear lab coats and are humorless drones. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for certain. We definitely don't have personalities or, make off-color jokes or anything like that. Never. This is a semi-professional environment here. Where did that joke come from? Semi-professional? Quasi-professional.
And then it's becoming more pseudo-professional.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is pretty late in the season too. This is day 25 of digging, so we're all succumbing to the desert madness at least a little bit. Some of us more than others, but yeah. And we've got some great questions here. And Lordy, how are you doing? Hello, Lordy. I hope you're having a great day. And Claire Burr says, would you kindly relay to Fisher how wonderful a job he is doing being the host of the show? When you pass it off to him for questions, please and thank you.
That's very sweet of you to say. Sometimes I worry I get a little bit too tangential with my explanations, but yeah. I'm glad you're enjoying them.
We definitely are, yeah.
I wish I can get to the point more, but I don't know. I have fun talking about it, so...
If streaming is about anything, it's definitely not getting to the point. It's about just yapping and filling time. So you're doing great, Fisher. By the way, really cool shirt.
Yeah,
I'm a little jealous.
I was really impressed by their shirt selection.
That's awesome. Shoot.
So yeah, I recommend if you like Miocene mammals, that you check out Agate Fossil Beds in Nebraska.
Nice.
If you like Entelodons.
You went there with Ken recently,
I did, yeah. In April, right after my internship ended, we took a weekend and went up there.
Nice.
Saw found some calicotherium teeth along the trails and
shoot.
Had a good time.
Nice. Very cool. Man. Go there and get one of those shirts, and of course see the fossils. Everybody says we love a good tangent. We appreciate your passion. Thank you for your expertise. All that good stuff. Thanks, Fish.
You're too kind.
Now, where was that other question? We had one from Geo's Rudent. What tips/advice would you give to anyone who is pursuing a paleontology career? Let's see. Maybe be born into a wealthy family and I don't know. Yeah, have like a hefty trust fund. Because you won't make much money doing paleo most of the time. No, in all earnestness though, jokes aside, if you or anybody else is interested in pursuing a career in paleontology, the best piece of advice that I can give you is to just get involved. You can go to university, you can take all the right classes, you can get good grades, you can do all that stuff, but those are often like, the credentials are a way of trying to get yourself involved in things. Sometimes you can just get involved. One of the thing that I did the thing that I was able to do, that I was lucky enough to do, that really set my career in the right trajectory was when I was in high school. I started volunteering at the Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley, California. And at the time, they didn't have a volunteer program. So I basically just sent a cold email being like, hey, I'm in high school now. I've always wanted to be a paleontologist. I'm a big admirer of your museum. Is there anything I could do to help out? I'd be happy working on fossil specimens, or I'd be happy sweeping the floors. Like, whatever I can do to get my foot in the door, I'm happy to do. And big shout out to Dr. Patricia A. Holroyd, who took me under her wing. She was my mentor through high school. Pat is one of my favorite people. And so I started volunteering there during the summers when I didn't have school. And in doing that, I did do a lot of sweeping the floors. But I also got to work with fossils. I got to work with paleontologists. I got to go out for lunch with visiting researchers from all kinds of different fields in paleo. I got to learn what it means to be a paleontologist and to do paleontology. I just got kind of immersed in that culture. So if you can get yourself into a museum, if you can volunteer, or even if it's something like you need a job that pays and they happen to have a janitorial position open, or if you can work in the gift shop or at the front ticket desk or in the administrative capacity or whatever, like, being there where the action is really important. And likewise, if you can get yourself onto a field crew, being able to, hang out with paleontologists, collect fossils, gather data, be there in the field, you will make connections doing that in the same way that you would working in a museum. Honestly, it's those connections that are really, really important. Maybe it would be nice if there was some sort of like standardized test that you could take, a placement test where, once you've learned enough about fossils, then you get placed into a position or something after taking this test. But that sort of thing doesn't exist. Paleontology, this whole field, this whole discipline tends to be pretty informal, and it's kind of who do you know and what experiences do you have. One thing kind of leads to another there, and getting involved is, it's the best piece of advice that I can give anybody. See if you can volunteer at a museum. See if you can join a field crew. Those are two of the best ways to get involved that I can think of, and that's what worked for me. So I hope that helps, Geos Rudent. I thank you for the question. I'm always happy to answer questions like that. Yeah. And let's see. Jim says, Dawn of the Cretaceous fossil beds. Yeah. Oh man, I need to work on that logo somewhere, Jim. But yeah. And Hybrid Stonerx says, how often do you find gold and can you keep it? Never, and I guess as a consequence of that, never, no. If you're going to find gold in a place like this, out in the Badlands of Wyoming, it's going to be like, oh, somebody lost a tooth filling, or, I don't know, Christopher Walken's grandfather's watch you happen to find out here. It's not going to be gold in the ground. This is completely the wrong kind of environment for that. In order to find gold, you need to go to environments where you've got a lot more like kind of metamorphosis going on, as I understand it, like, really geologically active areas, like the Sierra Nevada, or places like that where you've got like a ton of rapid uplift and you get like stuff from the upper mantle coming up. We don't have that in this part of Wyoming. So you're not going to find gold out here, as I understand it. Although, to be fair, my understanding of gold deposits and how they form is paltry, to say the least. Yeah. There's no gold in them hills now, but there are dinosaurs out here. Yeah. And Grand Bridget says, you will never find gold in fossil-bearing rock. It is about as far as possible from the right geology. Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to find gold out here, it's because somebody dropped it. Yeah. And no, that's not wrong, Matt M33. That was the intended response. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. And let's see. And yeah, let me get some more water while people are coming up with other questions. And baseball, yeah, I don't think that's very likely that dinosaurs were mining gold. It's kind of a silly thing to do. I mean, like, people like gold because it's shiny, it's pretty, and it's malleable, and it doesn't tarnish. There's also a lot of industrial applications for gold. But, I don't know, it's kind of a silly element when you come right down to it. The old AU is, it's got a certain frivolity to it, doesn't it? Gold. Let's see. That's why they're the best elements, says Burian. Wait, which ones? Yeah. It's like diamonds. Ooh, wow, a shiny stone. That's funny, baseball. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's one nice thing about dating geologists. You know, as she's very likely to go like, oh, you know, I don't really want a diamond ring, so don't even bother with that for the engagement ring. Like, it's just compressed carbon. I mean, there's nothing special about that. And they're not even that rare. You know, like, geologists tend to know these things and not fall for all the hype around things like diamonds. Yeah. A Larimar ring. There you go, Sloppy Salamander. Yeah. My girlfriend in college, she really liked. So I would look for opal rings and other jewelry for her, and she really liked that. Yeah. And lab gems are such better quality for way cheaper, says War Drum of J5. They really are. Yeah. Yeah. Shoot, when I was a kid, and I was subscribed to Scientific American magazine, I feel like half of the ads in Siam were, of course, they're aimed at, you know, a scientifically literate audience, or at least people who fancy themselves as being science-minded. And so I felt like half of the ads in Scientific American were for cubic zirconia. It's like, you're a discerning person, and you're interested in science. You know that diamonds aren't anything special. How about a cubic zirconium, you know? 1/10 the price and 10 times the brilliance, you know? So, I don't feel like they have as many ads like that anymore. But there was a time when they did, in like the mid-2000s maybe. Science News is sort of like that. It says, yeah. And that's cool, Neverwinter. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, and Vexy says, would smaller dinosaurs be better adapted to surviving food scarcity in comparison to larger dinosaurs? Vexy, great question, yeah. There is, in fact, we were actually talking about this earlier, me and Fisher. We were talking a little bit about insular dwarfism, I think, weren't we? So yeah, like there's this idea that when big animals end up on small islands, they tend to shrink in size generation to generation. They evolve to be smaller. And that's because there's just less food, and you can have a larger population with fewer animals. They also tend to be more mobile. They can get to certain areas better to find enough food to survive. We see this like on the Channel Islands off of California. There were mammoths that lived on the mainland, and then they made their way out to these islands, and then the sea levels rose and the islands became more isolated, so they're trapped there. And then generation after generation, this population of elephants, these mammoths grew to be smaller and smaller and smaller. Or they shrank to be smaller and smaller and smaller. It's a successful strategy if you want to be able to survive on less food. And so yeah, we do have some examples of this in dinosaurs where during the late Cretaceous period, Europe was kind of an archipelago of islands. And as sea levels would rise and fall, the islands would get bigger or smaller. But we do have what we think are like dwarf species of dinosaur on some of these smaller islands. I think it might be Hateg Island in what's now Romania today. But yeah, you have like dwarf sauropods and stuff like that. So these huge long-necked plant-eating dinosaurs arrived there, and then they got isolated on these small islands, and they just became smaller and smaller over time until you get dwarf species, which is really neat. So, yeah. And Diagonal says, meanwhile, the plants on those islands got bigger through fewer herbivores and less competition. There you go. Also, small animals that use their small size as a defense against predation tend to get bigger. If there's no predators to worry about, then they can get big and slow. And, yeah. So there's, I think it might be on Malta, the island of Malta, or maybe a few other islands in the Mediterranean. There are fossils of elephants that are really small, and there are fossils of dormice that are really big. So the elephants got smaller and the dormice got bigger. Yeah. Can you think of any other examples, Fisher, of like insular dwarfism in different critters, especially mammals, I guess?
There's all sorts of fun examples.
Yeah?
And there are little ground sloths on some of the Caribbean islands.
Yeah, there were some in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, the elephants are the most famous ones. There are tiny little hippos on Madagascar and on Crete and some Mediterranean islands.
Nice.
Let's see. Are we just going dwarfism, or are we going both dwarfism?
We could do gigantism too, yeah.
It's fun. A lot of birds get big. So, like on Malta, there were big swans. In New Zealand, you get really big rails.
And then you get the moas too.
Yeah.
Shoot. Yeah.
The biggest parrot in the world is from, or I should say, the kakapo is from New Zealand.
I didn't know it was the heaviest parrot in the world. That's cool.
I believe it is.
Yeah, neat.
I believe it's heavier than some of the big macaws. Let's see. Of course, the giant tortoises are a great example of island gigantism. You crop up on a lot of islands in the Indian Ocean, famously on the Galapagos.
Yeah.
The dodo is a giant flightless pigeon.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are other fun ones? Komodo dragons are probably actually insular dwarves.
Yeah, because they probably evolved from something like Varanus priscus, aka Megalania. Yeah. So, I don't know. As I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong here, because you probably know better than I do. With like the example of the Channel Island mammoths, they got smaller not just because there was less food available on those islands, but also that there was no predation pressure.
That's one of some of the ideas. Is that, less resources to grow big, and also less pressure to be big because you don't need to be big to fend off saber-toothed cats and wolves and bears and humans and all sorts of other predators that you might encounter on the mainland. And that makes these island animals more vulnerable when you do get invaders that show up. Through natural causes like land bridges, or when humans arrive, or when they bring other animals to these islands.
Right, like invasive species, yeah. Cool. Thanks, Fish.
And giants get vulnerable too, because they get big, they get slow, they get complacent. There's a phenomenon called island tameness.
Right,
Animals that live on islands lose a lot of their anti-predator defenses because they live in isolation for so long that they don't really need them anymore. And so you can just kind of walk on up to them and kill them. Kind of what befell the dodo. As well as, the plundering of their eggs by rats and mongoose and cats and monkeys
pigs,
and all sorts of mammals that were brought to Mauritius by sailors.
It's such a sad story. But yeah. Well, cool. Thanks, Fish.
Yeah, no problem.
Anything new and exciting over here?
I just flipped this piece, which has, it's the bottom right now, it's gluing, but there's a fish skull fragment.
Nice.
Well, actually, it's a complete fish, and then there's a little jaw fragment in there, and another, maybe like a little ribby or chevron thing.
Nice. Cool. Anything over there, Eva? Got a rib there? Nice ribby rib. Yeah, look at that.
It's a little too flat.
Just kidding, not a rib.
I don't really have the right shape.
Weird flat
I don't know what it is.
Weird flat
It's some
thing.
fish element that, again, like I've mentioned many times, no one here is a fish expert. We have no paleoichthyologists among us, which maybe we ought to change at some point. But we're all here trying to learn about this stuff and do our best. I mean, field IDs are always dubious, but especially when you are unfamiliar with the anatomy, it can get kind of tricky.
For sure.
A lot of what's labeled in that red tote down there is unknown fish element, question mark.
Nice. Yeah. I do like the idea of all of us kind of becoming, at least, if not experts on
A
bowfins,
little more familiar.
yeah, at least proficient in bowfin osteology, you know, as the years go on, as we continue working at this site. I want to learn more about bowfin. I need to do like Ethan did and get just buy a bowfin skull
Yeah.
off eBay or whatever,
Yeah,
and then label all the different bones.
Ethan's issue is that he couldn't take it apart.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do, was take it apart and look at the individual elements,
Uh-huh.
look at all the different angles, because when you have it all together, you're not going to be able to see
Right.
the inside of the brain case, which might be exposed here. You know, we might have the ventral side of a brain case.
Right.
And we wouldn't know what it looked like if we weren't able to take the thing apart.
I do have a digital model that I sent you, but I still don't know how to open that properly.
Yeah.
It was like, this is like 100 gigabytes worth of 3D data.
Yeah, I didn't have room on my computer for that.
Yeah. But we'll figure that out eventually, and maybe I can print those all really big and send them to you. That would be really neat. But maybe Blender would be good for that, actually. Figure that out. But yeah, cool stuff. Let's see if we got other questions. Let's see. Scrolling. Oop. And Neverwinter says, really? I thought Komodos were insular giants? No, so they might be more or less direct descendants from the giant monitor lizards that inhabited Australia a few thousand years ago. That might have been like 20,000 years ago or something like that. But like Varanus priscus used to be called Megalania priscus. But now we think it's much more closely related to other monitor lizards like the Komodo dragon. And so it could be that those guys ended up in this island chain, and then the sea levels rose, the island shrank, and Komodo dragons grew smaller as a result. That might be the case. Let's see. And Trooper wants to know, are insects, do they tend to dwarf or just pump up or down their numbers? Trying to think of an example of like an insular giant insect. There've got to be some. Yeah, shoot. I want to say the weta in New Zealand might be an example. They get pretty big. They're like a big cricket-like insect. And they're really neat, and they can freeze solid during the winter. Like, they can literally be encased in, like, a block of ice, practically. Well, not a block of ice, but, like, their bodies can pretty much freeze. You get ice forming over them when they hibernate during the winter, and then they just thaw out when it gets warmer, and then they go on their merry way. They're pretty neat. What is their bizarre animals? Yeah. And they're huge, the largest cricket in the world. Thank you, Neverwinter. Nice. Yeah. And, let's see. A question from Carva Upeli. What's something interesting that you found besides anything dinosaur or fossil related? We saw a badger yesterday on the way out here to the site. That was pretty cool. He was like glaring at us, just glowering from his burrow as we drove past. Let's see. Other things that I found maybe in the field that were not fossil related. I don't know, I think I told this story a little while ago, but I found an old, I found these big 50 caliber slugs from probably like a P-47 Thunderbolt fighter plane from World War II. Apparently they had a U.S. Army Air Corps base up there in Montana. So when I was prospecting out in 2015, I found some of those, and they're huge. Like, just the slug from the bullet's like this. That's nuts. Like, that thing hits you, it'll tear you in half. Apparently the fighter pilots would use that area and some of the local ranchers' cattle as target practice. These hotshot pilots. But, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Let's see other interesting things. Last year we found, well, I think it was actually a couple years before that it was found, but we excavated it last year, a bucket. An old rusty metal bucket right next to a dinosaur skeleton. Was probably left behind by this guy. Oh, and hello, GeoJim 2006. How are you doing? How was your stream, GeoJim? I hope it was really good. Welcome back to Paleontologizing. What kind of geology were you getting up to there? We're doing some paleontology here in the late Cretaceous almond formation of southern Wyoming. But yeah. I'm glad you're here, GeoJim. Thanks for bringing everybody in. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. We're doing some live paleontological field work out here in Wyoming. Fisher and Ava are down at the site right there excavating some fossils, and I'm just kind of walking around talking to all of you. So yeah. But yeah, the question was, what's something interesting that I found that wasn't a dinosaur or a fossil? I didn't find this, but we helped excavate it last summer. An old metal bucket. It could have been from the 1930s. We think it probably was. And we think it was probably left behind by this guy, Barnum Brown. This is the same guy who discovered T-Rex in Montana in 1902. But in the late 1930s, he was out here in Wyoming finding dinosaurs in the almond formation. So he was really the last guy who came out and found dinosaurs here almost 90 years ago now. And at a duckbill dinosaur site that had been, it looks like somebody had tried to excavate it a long time ago. Like it was basically, the rock around it wasn't really rock, it was like kind of broken up, turning to soil, like somebody had been digging there previously a long time ago. And there was an old rusty bucket right next to the skeleton. We think it was from Barnum Brown when he was here in the 30s. So that was pretty cool. A little piece of paleontological history from the early 20th century, or maybe mid 20th century, depending on how you define it. But that was pretty neat. So we ended up collecting the bucket, and maybe that'll be on display in a museum next to that dinosaur skeleton someday. Years or decades from now, and we can tell the story about how Barnum Brown came out here, found a bunch of dinosaurs, dug some up, and then never published on any of them. And this area was largely forgotten for 90 years, just about. There haven't been any dinosaurs named from this formation. Barnum Brown just had too many other things to do, and some of the specimens he dug up were apparently lost. We're still trying to figure some of that out. It's still kind of mysterious. We think that he dug up a tyrannosaur out here, maybe an ankylosaur, an armored dinosaur. Nobody seems to have any record of those. So it could be that AM&H in New York, the American Museum of Natural History, could be that they lost those specimens. It could be that they were destroyed in like an off-site storage facility fire or something. It could be that that stuff got thrown away when they failed to pay the bill on the off-site storage. I'm speculating wildly right now. We don't know what happened. But yeah, we don't know where those dinosaurs ended up. Yeah. And Nazoon says you should start leaving little notes in bottles for future paleontologists. I mean, that would be littering. We don't want to do that here. We want to leave no trace. But yeah, I don't know. We leave record of our work in our field notes, and like in the data that we have stored in our repository museums, and we have record of us being here in the VODs as well. You can go on YouTube and find the VODs. This is my 3rd year of live streaming in the almond formation, and so it's nice to have a little record of like what we were up to. Yeah, I think that's pretty neat. But also, one of the ways to discover old sites, like, yeah, here, let me back up a little bit. Sometimes you have a dinosaur that was dug up 100 years ago or more, and it's in a museum, and you don't have enough information about it. Like, where exactly did this dinosaur come from? You know, people 100 years ago didn't always take very good notes. They often didn't have cameras to be able to take pictures of the hillside so you could figure out where that quarry was or anything. And so if you're trying to relocate old sites, it can be challenging. And there are paleontologists who spend a lot of time doing that. Sometimes that can be more important than discovering a new dinosaur skeleton. Sometimes finding the context for an old skeleton that you already have can be even more valuable. Because then you know exactly where that specimen came from, where it is in the rock layers, exactly how old it is, all that good stuff. That can be incredibly important. And so there are paleontologists like Darren Tankey from up in Canada who have spent a tremendous amount of time trying to do detective work to figure out where their dinosaurs in their museum had come from 100 years ago. And so, sometimes you just go out into the field and you find a big hole in the ground and it's got plaster shards in it. You know that a dinosaur came out of that spot, but you don't know which dinosaur it is. So you can do things like try and look through old field photographs and match up the horizon line to try and find it. Sometimes you might find clues there in the quarry. There might be old, glass bottles that might have a date printed on them. There might be old beer cans. There might be even fragments of newspaper. And sometimes, because they used to use newspaper for wrapping the fossils back in the day, they used to use that instead of paper towels, because paper towels hadn't really been invented yet. So we'd use newspaper as separator, and that can be really informative. And so you can match up the field notes, however paltry they might be, to the site using things like a newspaper with a date on it. So it's really cool, that kind of detective work. Yeah. And shard-filled holes? Absolutely, salamander, yeah. Yeah. Not here in the almond formation, except for that I was telling you about earlier with the bucket. But I've found with plaster from, in the Judith River Formation in Montana, in the Hell Creek Formation. Sometimes that was from just previous years of the same field crews being out there. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, shoot. This is where, where Barnum Brown was digging in Montana 100 years ago. Stuff like that. And now we're getting some wind all of a sudden. And some clouds. These clouds are nice. As long as the wind doesn't kick up too much dust, then we're okay. Yeah. And, Chop Cicada says, my first thought was that he may have left the bucket to find the site again. So it wasn't buried really. It was just kind of like half tucked in the ground, that bucket, like next to much of the dinosaur is exposed on the surface. So it's easy to spot. It's not like he filled in a hole and none of it's visible. Like, it was visible on the surface. So I don't think he did that. But that's an interesting idea, Chop Cicada. Yeah. And, Claire Burt wants to know, do we have any idea what pulled Barnum Brown away from here specifically? The weather. So we get field seasons. The reason why we're out here during the summer right now is that during the rest of the year there's snow on the ground and it's too cold to work. You might get blizzards blowing through from, October through April sometimes. October through May, really. Like, there's always a chance of a blizzard here in this part of Wyoming. The weather gets really bad. And so there's a brief window in which you can actually get work done. And that's why we're here right now. It was the same for Barnum Brown back in the 30s. He was out here for, I think, one summer and nearly died because of the bad weather. But, he just got called away to do other things afterward. So he was a really busy guy. He worked all over the world, constantly being sent by the American Museum in New York to far-flung corners of our planet. He was kind of the guy that they would call when they've got a certain gap they want to fill in their collections. If there's rumors of a big cool dinosaur in a certain place, they'd send Barnum Brown out. He was the guy to do it. He was the guy to call. And Hybrid Stone says, are aviators the paleontologist's go-to sunglasses? It depends. I don't know. I like aviators, but other members of the crew use glacier goggles, glacier glasses. Let's see what Fisher and Ava prefer. We'll ask a paleontologist and a geologist what their preferred sunglasses are and why they like them. Let's go see. We got a question from the chat for you guys. What's your preferred kind of sunglasses in the field and why?
Big and polarized. Non-polarized sunglasses are beyond evil. They'll dilate your pupils and more UV will get in. It's just like, it should be illegal to sell non-polarized sunglasses.
I didn't realize that was such a serious thing. I'm pretty sure these are polarized, but can you tell?
I can tell.
Yeah?
Kind of. I need to look at a screen.
A screen? Okay.
Okay, I need to look at my screen. We have different screens.
Okay, here.
Let me get my phone. I can figure out.
Okay.
It's so important.
I'm pretty sure these are polarized, but now I'm worried. Fisher, what's your preferred sunglasses in the field?
I have transition lenses,
Nice.
and so I don't have any need for sunglasses because the
Heck
glasses
yes.
that I use to see anything with any sort of clarity whatsoever also protect my eyes from the sun.
Nice.
With the side effect of looking silly when I walk in a building.
For 2
fair price to pay.
seconds.
Yeah?
Okay. So, pretty much the way the plastic is this.
Yeah, there was like a...
Yeah, the rainbow, like.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, that's cool.
Like interference figures.
Nice. I like your USGS sticker there.
Oh, yes, and I have a pressed flower over it.
That's really cool. U.S. Geological Survey. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that from GSA in Anaheim.
Nice.
Last fall.
Oh, you went there. Cool.
Yes, I did.
My mentor from Berkeley went there too. She had to
neat.
choose between SVP and GSA, and she's like, "It's in Anaheim. I'm going to GSA."
Oh,
So.
I don't love Anaheim that much, but.
I think she wanted to go to Disneyland before or after.
Yes.
But, yeah, it was right next door, right? Anaheim Convention Center?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
right there. A lot of the people I was there with that I did research with went to Disneyland. I was like,
Nice.
not for me.
Cool. Well, yeah, so there's your answer, chat, about sunglasses. Thank you. Yeah, let's see, other members of our crew. If I were at the Ankylosaur site, we could go around and do a full survey and see what sunglasses people are wearing. I know Nick Oliver really likes those kind of glacier sunglasses, the wraparound ones with the plastic protective thing that go around this side. Ethan really likes the flip-up sunglasses, so like he's got regular prescription eyeglasses, but then there's like a sunglass part that flips up and down. He's really fond of those. It's kind of his signature. Yeah, I've seen some Oakleys on the crew, but if there were a more common type, it would probably be aviators. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. And let's see. Excuse me. And yeah, it says GSA, not General Service Administration. No, Geological Society of America. GSA. So, yeah, Ava there she's not really in paleo. She's a geologist, or a geology student. I'd call her a geologist, though. She's doing geology. That makes you a geologist in my book. But yeah, paleontology is like a mixture of biology and geology. And especially out in the field, we need a lot of geology, and we need geological expertise. So earlier in the day, Ava was out at the Purple Puzzle site helping to take a stratigraphic section, which is one of the most important things that we do in the field. So what is that, a stratigraphic section? It just means you're looking at the rocks. You've got like a big staff that we call a Jacob staff. It's like a stick with 10 centimeter intervals on it. It's 1.5 meters tall. Use that to measure the thickness of a rock unit. And so for a site like this, if you want to figure out how compared to other sites that we have in this area, then what you do is you find like a reference marker, so like the the bottom of the Erickson sandstone, and then you measure down from that in order to be able to figure out how many meters until it takes to get to this unit, where we've got our fossils here, and then you can compare that to other sites like our hadrosaur site or our ankylosaur site, and so we can measure how many meters from the Erickson sandstone that one is, and so that way you get kind of a sense for all of these sites in context. This one is older than that one, who's younger than this one, that kind of thing. So Ava was doing this earlier today, and that is, again, really important. I learned how to do this back in 2012, and didn't enjoy it. I found it really tedious, actually. I much preferred, excavating fossils to doing the stratigraphy part of our work. But I've got big respect for everybody who does that, because, man, I don't find it very interesting. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. Here, let me scroll down and check in on the chats. Yeah. And Indiana Jones didn't have signature sunglasses, says HD and HB. Well, I mean, he's also an archaeologist, and he's fictional. So, yeah. But yeah. And Jim says, always measure up. Yeah. Playing. Yeah, there we go. I was just trying to, yeah. I'm trying to, never mind. But yeah. And the good thing about science is they all use the metric scale, says TMK. Of course we do. It's science, Imperial measurements. Although, I will say one nice thing about non-metric is, when we're talking about temperatures, sometimes Fahrenheit is just a little bit more intuitive, I saw somebody joking about this online a while ago, where they're like, I think they were talking about like extreme heat and stuff. It was like, when you're talking about Celsius, like, oh, it's 38 degrees outside. Like, what? But, in Fahrenheit, like, oh yeah, it's about 100 hots right now. It sounds like a big number. It's very intuitive. It sounds hot. Yeah. I, of course, recognize that Celsius is objectively superior in this sense as well, just because 0 is freezing and 100 is boiling for water. But, I don't know. Yeah. There was an old phrase, how does it go? It's Fahrenheit is how people feel, Celsius is how water feels, and Kelvin is how molecules feel. And I think that makes sense. Yeah. And if it's only intuitive if you've grown up with it, says Charlie's Dragon. Yeah, true. And Murph says Fahrenheit is closer to the body. Again, like how people feel, yeah. Like 100, that's hot. It's a big number. Wow, big 100, hot. 38 doesn't have the same kind of, just like intuitive, like kind of dumb sense to it, Well, 100, big number. 38, not so much. But yeah. And Kennedy says, what's our imperial, even for metric sockets and all over the world? I did not know that. Interesting. Yeah. 38 is not a hot number. It's true, Salamander. You're right. Yeah. Rila Rolla says 38 has that same intuitive sense to it here, though. Does it really? If you're thinking of a big number, do you think of 38 or do you think of 100, Yeah. And RB42, that sounds confusing. Yeah. Fahrenheit falls apart there, says Charlie's Dragon. When you get to the cold side, below freezing is 0. Yeah. There goes Steely Dan. Here's a piece of trivia that I learned the hard way. When I lived in Montana, one February, we had one entire week where it was 40 below 0, negative 40 degrees for the whole week. And I don't have to say Celsius or Fahrenheit, because that's where the two scales converge. Negative 40, 40 below is the same for Fahrenheit and Celsius. That was not a fun week. Negative 40 for an entire week. It was colder than Antarctica that week. Partly because austral summer is the same as boreal winter, but forget about that. It was colder than Antarctica that week in Montana. And I had to drive a work truck that did not have a working heater. That was a lot of fun. And I walked to work as well. Yeah, that's too many cold units, says Casey Snowhart. Yeah. Yeah. And did you go uphill both ways? It certainly felt like it. Yeah, Casey. No, it was pretty level. I don't think there was an uphill either way. But, yeah. Yeah. As long as we all know that negative 40 is cold, we're all good, says RB42. That's a diplomatic answer. I like that. Bringing people together there, RB42. Anywho, all this talk about extreme temperatures is making me all the more grateful that we've got such beautiful weather today. I know that much of the country, much of the United States is going through a major heat wave at the moment. But us here in Wyoming, man, we're really enjoying some beautiful, hospitable temperatures here. What is the current temperature? Can somebody pull up the weather command? Yeah. So hot here in New Hampshire? Yeah. And no, you got to do weather and then the location. So like Green River, Wyoming. Marcy says, heat wave here and broken air conditioning. I'm sorry. Your stream is a cool spot in my day. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad we can help cool you down just a little bit. And 82 degrees. I don't know if it feels that warm. We got a nice breeze here. 11% humidity. Wow, downright humid today. Wow. Wow. So much water vapor. Yeah. But anyway. 16 miles per gallon breeze, says Murph. It might, I don't know if it would add 16 miles per gallon if you got a tailwind, but yeah. Maybe if I put some sails on the Prius, we could harness that wind power and get an extra 16 mpg. That sounds pretty nice, actually. Yeah, why don't enough people drive wind-powered cars nowadays? It's, lack of creative thought. 83% humidity. Holy cow, Ash. That's pretty humid. Yeah. Yeah. And wood cannot stand for homes less than 20% humidity without sealant? Interesting, that sounds. Huh. Yeah. Anywho, let's go see what else we got going on over there with our fossils after I get some water. Yeah. Now let me check on my battery too. How we doing battery wise? 74%, that's pretty good. I think I can reposition this a bit and get some more sun. We'll try to do that. Nice. Also, I don't know why, but it helps if I unplug the solar panel and plug it back in. 0 watts, 5 watts, 10 watts, 16, 17, 19, 21, that's pretty good. Yeah. And HD says there's a large rock on your battery? Where? What do you mean? Oh. This one? Yeah. It just sits on top. Keeps it from blowing away. Also keeps the sun off the top. Yeah. Want a rock as a radiator? Yeah, this is some Stone Age technology here. Look at that. Got a big dumb rock sitting on top of the battery. Good stuff. Yeah. Only the most advanced technologies for us. Flintstones were onto something, says Casey Snowhite, yeah. Anywho, Nutson says, can't go get to Mars. Thinking, who would want to go to Mars? There's no dinosaurs on Mars. It's lame. But we do have dinosaurs here and a bunch of other different critters. Anything new and exciting going on
Not much new.
in the quarry here?
Do some wrapping pretty soon though, so
Nice,
it's
okay.
a good time to show off what we got before it gets put in the vault.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
last time you guys were down here, this was recently the back of it glued.
Oh, yeah. Big old fish plate there. Beautiful. Man, fish are so weird with their skull bones.
Jaw there.
Yeah, nice.
And this was probably once a fun thing, but it seems to have crumbled a bit. Probably a partial rib.
Yeah. Gotta have them ribs.
Yeah. Sometimes they fall apart, and you gotta just be like okay with that here, because you know it's just inevitable.
Yeah.
How much you get.
I don't know. And
Luckily, they're common, so
yeah.
the important thing is this. So
Yeah. Nice. Very cool. I'm all jazzed to like get a bowfin skull now and learn all the skull bones.
yeah,
and everything,
it'd be
or
fun.
See if I can 3D print them all and assemble them or whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be neat.
Like I was mentioning earlier, they're so variable even within the same individual that it sometimes is a little bit of a moot point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it would help a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one's interesting because this edge is really flat, right, or smooth, and this edge is not.
Yeah.
So this is like a suture point maybe,
Interesting.
and then this is maybe like the edge of something. I'm not sure.
These are the things we amuse
Hard to
ourselves
say.
with in the field. This might not seem super exciting to you, chat, but it's neat to have like weird mystery skull bones. Like, what is this? Where does it fit?
Yeah.
What's it doing? Why? Why are you?
Yeah. Why is it textured like that?
Yeah.
You know. It's fun.
Neat. Yeah. I like your sticker there on your belt too.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you are a cutie, Fisher.
Oh. So flattering.
Oh, and you got one too? Nice. All the cool kids have got cutie stickers. My goodness, not a sponsored stream. We just eat those so we don't get scurvy out here. Those little tangerines. And you got anything over there, Ava?
Not really. I mean, I have this weird mess of a thing here.
Yeah, what is that?
Messes.
I don't know.
Messes are.
It's a real dog's breakfast of a fish.
There's like coming off of here, but they could totally be connected underneath. I see a little bit of bone
Interesting.
even out there, and so it might be solid. It'd be helpful to get it out.
How are you enjoying the extra large scoop too?
It's awesome. I fill up this scoop and then I just put it there. I guess eventually I'll have to put it in the matrix bag, but maybe I'll duck out and then Fisher will do it.
Nice. Yeah, I got that scoop. Shout out to Ken who picked that up from the package store when I ordered it. I didn't have my own big scoop, or I did for a while, but I didn't like how orange it was. So I got one that's a little bit less conspicuous, and I might donate the orange one to the crew. That's over at the Ankylosaur site now. So, yeah. I thought I would like a bright orange scoop, but I don't know, it's a little too conspicuous. So I like the kind of dull gray one. It's nice. Blends in with the landscape here out in middle of nowhere, Wyoming. Yeah. Oh, and Jim says you guys should send those shark spines to Salt Lake City with Ethan so I may examine them. Ooh. Ooh. We'll talk to Ethan about that.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Or at least maybe spare one of them.
Do we know where they are? Are they labeled?
They're all in the same bag down there. It's TH25135, I think.
Nice. That's a good name. TH25135.
Yep, 1 through 4.
Nice. Yeah.
We'll see what the Cincinnati Natty folks have to say about that. I'm sure they'd be happy to have your input, Jim.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be nice to have some ideas from the lesmobranch experts. Yeah. And Earth Milan says, "Oh, you're actually out and about doing things." Well, what do you mean? That sounds a little catty. Yeah. Oh, you're actually out and about doing things? Like, yeah, I do lots of things. Thank you. But we're out here in, like I said, middle of nowhere, Wyoming, broadcasting to you live via satellite from a fossil dig here. So we're collecting fossil specimens, gathering data. Doing field paleontology, and I'm here streaming it to kind of show you what this is like and answer your questions, and this is science outreach in the best way that I know how to do it. But yeah, hope you guys stay well and find some goodies. We definitely are doing both. Well, I know we're finding goodies. Are we staying well too?
I would say I am.
Yeah.
Quite well right now.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're doing both. Thank you. Yeah. And I understand Charlie's Dragon. I'm being snarky here. Yeah. But yeah, if you've got any questions about field paleontology, about the history of life on Earth, about extinction or evolution or dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are what I study and what I publish on, then don't hesitate to ask. That's the whole point of these streams, Science outreach. There's so much misinformation online nowadays. There's so much garbage and nonsense and disinfo. I'm trying to combat that in my own little way by, sharing some science with you. Unvarnished, straight from the source, unpolished, from the field. This is, like I said, this is the best way that I know of for doing science outreach. And I'm glad to have you along. Let me know if you got any questions. Setting the fossil record straight. There you go, Casey Snowart. I like that. Yeah. And Zeif says, are there any type 1 diabetics in the field? I'm sure there are paleontologists with type 1 diabetes. I don't know if anybody in our crew has that. We do have some other conditions, like, the three of us right now at this site, all three of us are vegetarians.
I don't know if that's comparable, Danny.
I mean, it's something, yeah. Doesn't make us a protected class or anything, but, But we don't eat meat, the three of us. Which does mean that we often get to eat dinner first, because we get back and we could just, make up some veggie burgers and eat them. It's been a lot of veggie burgers this year in the field.
They're great.
Yeah. But we've got a crew member who is gluten intolerant. And then apart from that, I don't know, people just... Most of the rest of our crew is just content to eat any old garbage, which is nice. Yeah. And, yeah. And Zeif says, I gave up the idea of field work when I got diagnosed a long time ago, anthropology, but I'm thinking of what to do in the future. I'm sure there's a lot more options available for people with all kinds of different dietary and medical stuff. Yeah, in fact, that specialized diet is not necessarily, or that and like insulin, I don't imagine that would be a humongous hindrance in the field. That being said, fieldwork isn't for everybody. Like, there are people who are otherwise very physically fit and really capable people who just can't make it out here in the field, We've had to send people home before because, they get altitude sickness on the first day and then they just kind of don't recover and they just need to leave. We get people who get heat exhaustion immediately and then they just kind of, a malaise settles over them and then they have to go home. Conditions out here can be pretty rough and tumble. We're out here in a semi-desert at 7,000 feet elevation sometimes. We're not super near a hospital or air conditioning or things like that. So it's not for everybody. Yeah. And that's okay, you know? Humanity is a rich tapestry. There's so many different people with so many different strengths and limitations, and that's cool. That's something to be celebrated. Fieldwork is not for everybody. This is the sort of thing that I love and I really enjoy. I'm going to be out in the field for at least 2 months this year. Closer to 3 months, actually, all told. And I live for this, you know? This is my happy place. This is what I've dreamed of doing since I was a child, and now I get to do it. Now I get to share it with you. How cool is that? But yeah. And there you go, Ziv. Okay, yeah. Especially in anthropology, like, I don't know. Here, I'll say this. We have had some archaeologists on our field crews before. Archaeologists studying, you know, they're used to studying human artifacts. They're used to kind of digging in neat little squares. I'm overgeneralizing here, so take this all with a grain of salt. But in my experience, sometimes archaeologists have a difficult time doing paleontological fieldwork because conditions out in the places where we work as paleontologists are often a bit rougher. We often have less funding. We have less infrastructure. Almost all of the archaeologists that I know who do fieldwork, like, they stay in a hotel every night. We never do that. It's been 26 nights so far with me sleeping in a tent, and it'll be, I think, 32 by the end of the summer. By the end of the season, you know, next Monday. Yeah, we've got to deal with kind of rougher conditions. I'm sure there are archaeological crews for whom, you know, they might have more primitive conditions than we have at our camp, but that's not the norm from what I understand. This is based on my experience. Might not be true in all cases, but yeah. Yeah, I have a need for indoor plumbing, says HD and HB. Yeah, we don't have that out here. Our bathroom facilities are a bush, or a hole in the ground, or back in camp, we've got a little aluminum box with a toilet seat on it that you can only go number 2 in. No number 1. Number 1 has to be elsewhere. We don't want to fill it up with number 1. Yeah. And respect. Thank you, true love. Yeah. Yeah. And where are you bathing? Wet wipes and dry shampoo? Just wet wipes. I don't have any dry shampoo with me, Slot Dad. But yeah, lots of wet wipes every night before I get into my sleeping bag. Well, welcome back, Slot Dad. Good to have you here. Yeah. And Charlie's Dragon says archaeology tends to be nearer where people still live. That's a good point, isn't it? Yeah, human settlements. Humans like to be near water. They like to be near resources. These are not necessarily the kinds of areas where dinosaurs liked to die and leave their skeletons. Being a little facetious, but yeah. Occasionally you find dinosaur fossils like in the middle of a city, like famously in Denver, Colorado. They've got a Triceratops that was excavated like within city limits there. St. George, Utah, all kinds of incredible fossils right there in the middle of town. We were just there a couple months ago live streaming from that site. But when we're, I don't know, out here in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, it's kind of far from anything. And yeah, it has its pluses and minuses, I'll say that. And Hybrid Stone says, do you use GPR scans for finding dig sites? No. That sort of thing doesn't work in this kind of context. Like I was saying earlier, the way that we find new sites is by prospecting. You walk along, you look at the ground, you pick up anything that might look like a bone fragment, and sometimes things turn out to be bone fragments. You follow them up, and then you find the source and you dig in. It's the same way for, 150 years. There's not move upon that. I've tried to make little technological tweaks to fossil prospecting in the past, but they've been really simple ones. Like, at one point I thought, I wonder if it would help me prospect by wearing eye black, like a football player. So just like, black under the eyes like that would reduce glare. If you're wearing sunglasses, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah. And we often are wearing sunglasses when we're out prospecting. So it's hard to improve upon the old Mark I eyeball. And, yeah. Does that make sense? And True Love says, my dad lived right next to the dinosaur found in Colorado recently. Very cool. Yeah. Coors Field. There you go, Miss Capri Kel. Yeah. I should get some dry shampoo for next time, but I don't know. I try and reduce my amount of waste as much as I can when I'm out in the field, and so like having a can of stuff that you have to throw away afterward, like, I don't know. I don't use shaving cream when I'm out in the field because I don't want to have to throw out a metal can at the end of the season. I use an electric razor instead, and that just simplifies things. But anyway, can you get dry shampoo in like a glass jar or something like that? That'd be neat. Yeah. And there you go, True Love. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. Dinosaur fossils from the middle of middle of Denver, Colorado. Neat stuff. And you can get powder in a container. Interesting. You can get dry shampoo powder. I'm gonna have to look into that. That might be nice for next month in Utah. Yeah, we'll see. And holy cow, Just Ask Miles. Thank you for those gift subs. Holy moly, 20 of them. Just Ask Miles. No, Figret of Sweden, rather. Figret of Sweden, thank you very, very much for those gift subs. Holy moly, 20 at once. There are 20 lucky chatters who won't have to watch a single ad until we're, well, about halfway through our season in Utah next month. Holy moly. That is phenomenal, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Figurative of Sweden, for your generosity. Thanks for supporting Science Outreach on Twitch. Thanks for keeping me out here, making it possible for me to do these streams in the first place. Appreciate you. Excellent. Just showing my support, it means a lot. Thank you very much. Seriously, I'm grateful. Yeah. Good stuff. NY31, how are you doing? Hello. Yeah. Wigret, there you go, Hyperstonia. Excellent. Yeah. And Kabuki says, haven't gotten to tune in for quite some time, but I'm glad I get to watch a little bit while at work. Great to have you here, too. Again, we're here at the Turtle Hill site out here in Wyoming. And we've got a whole bunch of different organisms from this site. We've got a small number of dinosaurs from here, but mostly other critters. And right now, Fisher and Ava are doing the important work of wrapping up some of these specimens. Some more TP today. Some loo roll if you're from Wealth Country. But yeah. And so some of these slabs of rock with fossils in them need to be. That is so neat and pretty. Is that the Finnish flag right there? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. How much for that Finnish flag, Fisher?
Finland. 36 kron.
That sounds like a steal. Yeah. Or maybe it's expensive. I don't know. But yeah, so this is some of the important documenting work that gets done here. Is putting specimen numbers and site names and stuff onto these so that when they get back to the laboratory and the museum, we know exactly where they came from and we can make sense of everything. So again, only the most expensive and complex and hard to find of scientific equipment like Great Value brand Walmart plastic bags and toilet paper and painter's tape, just very arcane scientific instruments here. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Looks like she's finished wrapping it, at least, says Ash. Oh boy. How much for a bad pun, Fisher?
Pun. I'm sorry. I'm so distracted. There's a shrike over that I'm looking at. It looks like
A shrike?
so.
Cool.
Unless I'm wrong.
Oh, a neat bird.
Distance. That's what it is.
How much for a shrike?
Murderous passerine. 69 krone.
Wow.
Wow, that's pricey. Shrikes are really cool.
I don't know. Maybe it's.
It's either a shrike or a kingbird, I think. I remember seeing this earlier. It's probably a shrike. Shrikes like to perch on the tops of bushes like that and just kind of survey their domain and look for small critters that they can murder and impale on branches. Or barbed wire if they can get it, but we don't have really barbed wire around here. Not a lot of fences around here. That's one of the really nice things of being in this part of Wyoming. Is, yeah, we don't have a lot of fences. Like that old song, Don't Fence Me In. You know, this part of Wyoming is like, yes, we agree. But there's that bird there. Let's see. You flit around a little bit more. Let's see if we can approach. How you doing, shrikey bird? Shrikey bird, flying through the sky so fancy free. There we go. It's down on the ground, evading us. Yeah. And Murph says, nice, Fisher loves dinosaurs, confirmed. Fisher does like birds. Fisher loves all of God's creatures. Don't you, Fisher?
Yeah.
Confirmed. Yeah. Yeah, an adult viper. Hey, thank you for the 7 months of support. Really appreciate that. Good stuff. Neverwinterful says, see if you can find its killing tree. Okay, let's go over. I think he's right behind that bush. Hopefully he doesn't get us. Oh, so tail sticking up. Is that a shrike? Who are you? Who are you, birdo? Foraging on the ground. Is that shrike behavior? What are you? I don't know. It's okay, bird friend. In pursuit of the theropod dinosaur right now. I don't know if that's a shrike. It's very slight. I don't know. What do you think, chat? Yeah. Watch out for the ones coming from the sides. Shoot, Mark Melvin. I think we're safe. Yeah. The other two songbirds, you didn't even know were there. Nazoon says, the guile shrike lures the unsuspecting human into a pit trap. Soon he will feast. Uh-oh. It is hard to find a tree around here. There's no trees, Murph. There's no trees in Wyoming, famously. They don't exist. It's just scrub brush sagebrush, some ephedra, some kind of patchy grasses like this that are really dry. Look at that. Yeah. No trees. Wyoming also famously only has 2 sets of escalators in the entire state. And they're both in I forget. Yeah. And this is high desert. It says probably consider it like high semi-desert. At least that's what Fisher's been calling it. I think that's safe to say. It's not grassland. It's too dry to be grassland. Instead, you just get this really hardy, scrubby. Well, I say really hardy. This one wasn't very hardy. It died. R.I.P. that sagebrush there, and R.I.P. this sagebrush here. But yeah, this isn't sagebrush. What is this? Who are you? Doesn't smell like sage. This is something else. But yeah, it's dry country out here. And True Love says, did you know that birds of the same species but from different areas have different accents? I have heard this. Yeah, it's very cool. And is this creosote bush? If so, this stuff burns really. I don't know if it's creosote, but creosote does have like interesting burning characteristics, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Yeah. HD and HB says, when I was a tiny tot, the highlight of visiting California was the escalators. Is California known for its escalators? I guess cities are. Yeah, there's a lot of escalators in San Francisco, where I'm from. Yeah. Anywho, we don't have very many escalators here. I mean, look. Not a single escalator to be found. It's got the full 360, not even one. But yeah. Glazed Donut says, I thought I saw one. Here, look again. Yeah, no. This is a bush. Maybe you were confused. Yeah. Oh, it was dirt. Okay, yeah. Anyhow. I was reading an article about escalators in Wyoming and how there's only 2 escalator sets in the entire state, both in, I think, Cheyenne. And, yeah, and they were both built in like the 1980s, which means that it's been, I think it was like early 80s. Which means that it's been like 50 years since, 50 years? Something like that. 40 plus years since anybody's built an escalator in the state. Nuts. Anyway, is that a little lizard over there? Hey, lizard friend. Can we get close to you? There. Ooh, he's doing some push-ups. That's a male. He's showing off to me. He's like, hey, stay away. I can do push-ups. I work out. See him there under the bush? How are you doing, lizard friend? What's shaking? How you doing? You staying still? If you move a little bit, people can see you. There you go. Yeah. How are things? You having a good day? Yeah. Nice. Where are you going? Oh, ouch. Slipping on this rock. Yeah, it's one of our local residents here. One of the local natives is a sagebrush lizard. It's genus Scaloporus. I forget what the species name is, but he's moving around a little bit. There he goes. I wonder if that's the same one we saw last year or the year before. He was hanging out right over here. And got so close to me at one point I could reach out and touch his tail. I think we have a clip of that. I'm just touching the end of this lizard's tail and he just doesn't care. Could be the same individual, who knows? They probably like it when we show up though, because we kind of like move around a bunch of rock. We probably stir up a bunch of bugs. It's probably good eating for a while, you know? A bunch of filthy paleontologists just attracting flies and other tasty bugs for them to eat. Yeah. Also, you know, it's just kind of, it's probably the highlight of their day, seeing some big weird apes come dig in the ground. They're like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know? You guys seen this? Yeah. And Scoloporus graciosus. He was pretty gracious, wasn't he? Yeah. Like the birds following tractors. Exactly, Murph, yeah. And Snowdenchi says, whoop. Waiting for them to just zip at you. All right, buddy, I warned you with my sweet strength. There you go. Yeah. Good stuff. HDNHB says, how are you doing on ticks? Not very well. I haven't had a single tick all summer. I've had 0 ticks this season. That's not a good stat, you know. I got to do better. Other crew members have found some ticks, especially at the Purple Puzzle site, but I haven't even seen one all summer. And We Chase says, wow, this channel. Find it. Welcome. Been what a cool stream you have here. Looking forward to watch many more. Cheers from Connecticut. Wow, well. Greetings from Wyoming. I'm so pleased to hear you today, if you can believe it. We'll have some higher paced streams, I think, later in the week when we're faster paced streams when we're at the Ankylosaur site. There will be more bones to look at. There will be more fossils being excavated. Turtle Hill, you know, we could call it Turtle Chill. It's a pretty chilled time. Fisher and Aver just bagging and labeling some specimens over there. But this is the nice kind of chill out, hang out site spot. And it's been really nice to be here for the last couple days because I was working at a much faster paced site a couple days ago. On Saturday, really wore myself out at the Hadrosaur site. We were doing a ton of jacketing and oh boy, it was a long day, like 10 hours of just straight digging and jacketing the whole time, and it was exhausting. So I've been recovering from that, and it's been really nice to spend time here at Turtle Hill. Yeah. And a smaller tick in the jar with it. Whoa, shoot, Snowdenchi. That tick was big enough that there was another tick feeding on it? That's wild. I don't suggest collecting all the tick-borne diseases, says Murph. I mean, yeah, there are other people in camp who've got higher tick counts than I do this year. I've never actually really had a tick bite me, to my knowledge. There's our lizard friend again. Hey, lizard friend, let's go say hi. He's just under this rock. See this rock sitting on top? He's right underneath. Let me try and get the camera closer. Oh, there he is. There he goes. Howdy, hey, lizard friend. Oh, look, he just jumped onto there. You're so athletic. My goodness. What squamate prowess you have. Whoop. Anything? All right, we see you. Excellent. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. My encoder battery just died, so I was able to swap that out real quick, and we're good. Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for sticking around. Told you it would just be a minute. But, yeah. Anywho, our lizard friend has gone off to find greener pastures, and, yeah, I don't know. We're just here. Check out these cool fossils, by the way. I know I showed this off yesterday, but I want to do it again. We've got these lovely clam fossils from right near our site. Well, they're basically from some of the beds above where we get our microvertebrates. But all these lovely unionid clams. These guys are really interesting in that you don't think of a clam as traveling very far during its lifetime. But oh, you would be wrong. So these guys, when they are larvae, I think they actually swim around and they get stuck in the gills of fish. And then the fish will carry them all over hither and yon throughout different waterways. And then eventually they drop out and they find new places to rest and then be adult clams. It's pretty neat. So these guys are still around today, the unionid clams, or unios for short. they like flowing water, so this is a nice clue that at this time we had flowing water in this environment. Pretty neat. Yeah. And prehistory Wyoming clam bake site, says Das Fuster. I guess. I don't know. I don't eat clams. But yeah. Anyway, thank you, Reaganation. Tier 3 sub, 16 months. It's a long time, and Tier 3 is, that's pretty special. I appreciate it. Holy cow. That's excellent. And that traveling would be great for genetic diversity, that's this Candle White. Yeah, and they're just like exploiting new habitats, increasing your range. It's a nice survival strategy. You know, again, you don't think of clams as being very mobile, but these guys actually are when they're very small, before they reach their full adult size and stage like that. Pretty neat. And Jim says, you folks need to have Joe Hartman look at those unioids. We had Ray Rogers out here earlier in the summer, and yeah, he said, yeah, I think Joe might be interested in these. But I think Joe Hartman is semi-retired nowadays. A big block of this that's already at the museum in Cincinnati. So if we can get him out there at some point, that would be really cool. I've met Joe Hartman in the field before. Good guy. He loves fossil mollusks and modern mollusks too. And yeah, it'd be great to have his input on this. Yeah, wonder if sudden piles of clam fossils would indicate an eating site. So these are in situ, like they don't seem to be opened or eaten, I don't think. Some of them are open, but yeah. I don't know, you could just get collections of clams. It doesn't mean that anybody was eating them. Yeah, the way that you would test that, I guess, is to look for bite marks or something, or some telltale sign of predation. And we're not seeing that here. What I am seeing, however, is a lizard. Hey, lizard friend. Can we sneak up on you a little bit more? Let's go say hello to you. Right there on the edge of the rock. You see him? How are you doing, lizard friend? What's shaking? Beautiful little sagebrush lizard. They're so athletic. I love this. And it's like the perfect temperature for them right now. See him doing those little push-ups? It's a threat display. He's like, look at me. I'm so strong. I can do 2 push-ups. Don't come after me. I'll mess you up. Huh. You're so fearsome. Yeah, look at you. You're so fearsome. You're beautiful. You know that? Has anybody told you that recently? You're a beautiful lizard. Yeah. Nice. Stay right there and I'll try and get the camera nice and close. There we go. Wow. Look at you. What are you doing there? Let's see if I can reach out and touch him. Looks like the end of his tail is missing. Oh, not quite. All right, we'll stop harassing him. We'll let him have a nice quiet afternoon. Yeah. Casey Snowart says he's showing you how strong he is. You'll invite him to help move fossils. He's a little scientist. You know, he's always welcome to help. Shoot. Yeah, we could use the help. And Lego Bit says, what would happen if a salamander crawled out of there? I would be very surprised, and that salamander would probably be in distress given how dry it is out here and there's no water. So I would probably offer him some water, and then him or her, and then see if we could find a more suitable spot for a salamander, because they do not exist out here. Yeah. And hey, Ken is in the chat. Howdy, howdy. Welcome, Ken. I hope you're having a good day. It's good to see you. And Hisyu Kai, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. Fancy badge you got there. How are you doing? Got a partnered streamer in chat. Howdy, howdy. Good stuff. Anywho, Ken, hope your trip back to Colorado was pleasant. I know it's a long drive. We're looking forward to seeing you again on Friday or Saturday. So, it'd be nice to have you out here at the end of the season. We miss you already. Fisher Naver, do you miss Ken?
Of course we miss Ken.
Yeah.
Ken holds a special place in my heart.
Oh. You really do, Ken. We miss you, bud. But that almost sounded condescending. That's no way to talk to Ken. We miss you, man. Yeah.
You're the man, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're the dog now, man. Or man, however that goes.
The Goat King.
The Goat
He
King.
is the Goat King. And if you're hearing this, we all think you're the Goat King.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, Ken. And Merv, thank you for gifting Hisyu Kai. I appreciate that. Rwander's MSFT says hello from Colorado here. Hello from Wyoming. You were in a neighboring state. Cool. Yeah, to you and Hisyu Kai and anybody else who might be new here. Oh, Ken says I'm even more confused now, lol. That's maybe our intended purpose, but we won't say. Yeah. Miss you, Ken. And doing my part. Thank you. 13 months, EB Knight. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting Science Outreach here on Twitch. For anybody just waltzing in, anybody who's here for the very first time, allow me to introduce myself real quick and introduce you to the channel. My name is Danny Anduza, and this is Paleontologizing. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, so I work on dinosaurs. Most paleontologists do not work on dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the history of life on Earth. Paleontology in general. Everything from fossil bacteria to fossil baleen whales, from fossil frogs to fossil ferns. You know, if there's a critter that left record of its existence in the rocks, there's a paleontologist who studies that. I happen to work on dinosaurs. So we're out here in Wyoming with a crew of scientists, volunteers, community members. We're out here excavating fossils, collecting data, trying to figure out what this ancient environment was like and learn everything that we can about the late Cretaceous almond formation here in Wyoming. This has been a really cool project going on for about 5 years now. I've been participating in it for 3 years now. We're almost done with my third year. Year 5 overall. We've got about 5 more digging days after today, and then we'll be taking all of these fossils that we've been excavating, all of this data that we've been recording, and bringing that back to the Cincinnati Museum of Natural History in Cincinnati, Ohio, and also the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, yeah, this is all for, the progress of science. That's why we're doing this, and it's a pleasure to be able to share it with you via the magic of Twitch and satellite internet, powered via solar there. So, yeah, let me know if you've got any questions. The whole point of these broadcasts is to do science outreach, to be able to, show you how we actually do paleontology in the field. So, I'm all about questions. So if you've got them, and I've got answers, don't be shy. Yeah. And did you all name Turtle Hill? So this was a few years back. There's a few different Turtle Hills in this area, actually. But this one was found, I think, in 2022. I want to say that Logan found this site. He found some turtle material here, and he named it Turtle Hill. It turns out turtles are probably not the most important critter from here, though. We've got now a fossil mammal and a ton of fossil fish material. And the fish are kind of yielding the most bits that we're finding. And the main fish is one that's called Melvius. That's the genus name. And we think we might have the most Melvius material ever found at a single site, potentially. We might end up having like the most complete Melvius skeleton ever found. It's all disarticulated. We've been finding bits and pieces for years. But if this all belongs to one individual animal, and it's a big individual, the sucker would have been 8 or 9 feet long, potentially. Really big. We might have the best specimen on the planet here, which would be really cool. Really important. Yeah. And Shemji says it's so cool what you guys do. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be able to share it with you. And Murph says they are predators, right? Do we know what they're eating? Ooh, yeah. So Melvius was a big predatory fish. It belongs to a family called Amiidae. So Amia calva, is, I think, maybe the only living species, but it's still around today. Same member of the same family. Amia calva, the bowfin. And you can look up bowfin online. They are predatory fishes that live in freshwater here in the United States, and they're really cool. They've got these long undulating fins that go all the way down their body. They kind of look almost like an eel, but they've got a big mouth filled with pretty sharp, nasty looking teeth. Nowadays they get up to like 2 feet long, something like that. So they're not huge, but they're pretty big for like a freshwater fish you'd find in North America. Back during the Cretaceous, Melvius and other big bowfins, they got really big, 2 or 3 meters long. So we're talking about like an 8 or 9 foot long fish at the biggest, potentially. And that seems to be maybe around the size of the one that we're finding here. And they would have eaten fishes, they would have maybe eaten small turtles, they would have eaten and stuff. Basically anything that falls into the water or is swimming around would have been fair game for them. Unless you're talking about like large dinosaurs, in which case they better swim out of the way so they don't get stepped on. But yeah, Melvius, pretty darn cool. So yeah, we're excited about this. The tricky thing about fishes like Melvius, though, is that their skull bones are often difficult to identify. They're often really thin and wispy. And like Fisher was saying, the skull bones can actually vary in shape, even from left to right side in the same individual fish. So you might have like a lacrimal bone that looks one way on the left side and it looks another way on the right side. It can be really confusing. And so none of us here are fish experts, like we've been saying, but we're going to have to learn our way around a bowfin fish as we get these things get cleaned in the museum and as we start to study them and get ready to publish. Yeah, we're going to have to really know our bowfin back to front. Yeah. And Payne Haynes says, was this a shallow or deep water area? Sounds like Melvius was a deeper water fish. We think this was shallow water. In fact, let's talk to Ava about this because she was doing some like SED logs here at the site, trying to figure out the microstratigraphy. And yeah, we get some different environmental settings, like different depositional settings.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe walk that through us a little bit, Ava.
Okay, so I don't really know anything about where Melvius lives, and so I really only just look at the rock side of stuff, and just based off of how carbonaceous this is, like the hash that we do see here immediately going into like a plant fossil bearing layer makes me feel like this must be much more shallow, and so a marsh or just like a very shallow lake.
So we're not talking about a big deep lake or anything. We're
No.
talking about something much more shallow, marshy, lots of like organic crud settling to the bottom.
Yeah, pretty large, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially right after a bed of coal,
like
you wouldn't have a bed of coal and then deep water. That would indicate like some kind of unconformity where you're missing a lot of time and there's crazy erosion, which isn't really reflected in these layers here.
So what does the coal represent? What does that tell us?
There are a few things. Coal could be like a peat bog. It's just like a super high density of plant debris that's settled down.
Yeah, it's like a swamp or something like that, I guess.
Swamp.
Is that swamp this whole time? Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
swamp is a fair assumption.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so we've got change from a swampy environment into like maybe a marsh or like shallow lake or something, and then what happens when we get up into the mudstone up above?
That's something that I will figure out when I do my point counts. So
Nice,
when
okay.
I make a thin section, I do have samples of everything. And I'll be able to look at the grains and maybe learn about their transport history,
Okay,
what it's
cool.
made of, what kind of process it's been through.
So figure out whether it's lacustrine or fluvial or what. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Neat.
That'll be a big part of my project.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for letting me grill you about this. Again, you know this better than any of us here, so yeah, nice. So Ava's a geologist or geology student. I would call you you're doing geology, so
thank you.
for our intents and purposes here, you are a geologist, absolutely. But yeah. Again, it takes different people with different realms of expertise to work a site like this because there's so much going on. And yeah, I hope that makes sense, chat. Let me go catch up to chat and then get some water. Yeah. Shallow water sounds about right. Exactly, Desfuster. Yeah, I think they are fairly similar to snakehead, not in their morphology, like not in their phylogeny, but I think they've got a similar kind of ecology. They're predatory fishes. They're living in like maybe kind of semi-murky water. Yeah. And Ash says, I love how readily everyone who's working on the site has been to share their knowledge. I mean, that's what it's all about, you know? We're passionate about this. This is what we love. And, you know, generally that makes us happy to be able to share it. So, yeah. I love how interested people are about this in the chat, you know? That makes me happy. We're eager to share this, and you're eager to hear about it. That's a great combination, you know? That's pretty special. Glad to be part of it. Yeah, I would think so. Not a whole lot of flow, and like anytime you've got so much organic, like that kind of organic hash like Ava was mentioning, as I understand it, that typically represents an area without a lot of water flow. So pretty stagnant water. Yeah. And hey Spiral Walker, how are you doing? Hello. And did the earth in this area rise up from when this was a swamp? Absolutely, Slot Dad. Yeah. So, here's my like standard spiel for this. So today in Wyoming, we're at about 6,000 or 7,000 feet elevation. Be sea level. So this whole area would not have been kind of a high semi-desert plain like this with hills and valleys and hogbacks and anticlines and stuff. This would have been very flat, very wet, pretty warm. Think like present-day Louisiana or Mississippi Bayou or parts of Florida, kind of like that. And so throughout this area, you've got dinosaurs walking around, like big ceratopsid dinosaurs, like this guy here. You've got duckbill dinosaurs, like these guys, going to be pretty common in this environment. And then you get tyrannosaurs, ornithomimosaurs, a host of other dinosaurs. But much more common than them would be the other smaller critters in this environment. Things like turtles, lizards, snakes. Mammals may not have been particularly common, but they were here, little tiny mammals. Frogs, salamanders, and then freshwater fishes. You had your ray-finned fishes, like your bowfin and your gar. We've got at multiple sites now. And we've also got fishes, things like sharks or freshwater stingrays in this environment too. And yeah, so again, pretty swampy, pretty wet, low-lying coastal plain at sea level, essentially, right there next to the ocean. Yeah. And anywho, yeah. Missed an important part of the explanation? Shoot, I don't know which part it was, but sorry. Yeah. And Ungoy says, were there relatives to the tuatara in the Americas? Absolutely, yeah. Rhynchocephalians are sphenodontians, are tuatara relatives. And I know they're around in the early Cretaceous. I don't know if they make it into the late Cretaceous in North America, but they were definitely around during the Age of Dinosaurs. And at some point they disappear, and now the only place on Earth where they still survive in the wild is New Zealand, where you've got tuatara. They look a lot like lizards to the untrained eye, but they're not lizards. They're a more ancient group that evolved before the first lizards did. And they're super neat, the sphenodontians. They've got a lot of interesting anatomical characteristics, but one of them is that they don't have like the same kind of teeth like lizards do. Their teeth are not in sockets. They don't have roots. Their teeth are just projections of the jawbone. They're pointy bits of the jaw that stick up. They're really neat animals. Tuataras, sphenodontians, they're really cool. Yeah. Yeah. And Attila the Mom says, so way back when this was all swamp, what latitude was it, or earlier? We're talking way later than Pangea, yeah. At this point, North America, I think, would have been slightly higher latitude than it is today, if memory serves. Don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. But I think that this would have been further north than it is today. But it still would have been warmer, because, the climate was just warmer back then in the late Cretaceous. Warmer and wetter. Sea levels were a lot higher. Not much ice on planet Earth at the time. Yeah. And Ash says, I didn't know such a thing existed. Yeah, look up tuatara. They're super cool. We didn't do World Tuatara Day this year, but we'll do a special celebration for that next year, I think. I want to say it's May 2nd is World Tuatara Day. And they're incredibly cool reptiles. Only one species left in the entire world. There used to be hundreds or thousands of species during the Age of Dinosaurs. They were diverse and widespread. Now there's just one left, and it's very special, very precious. It's endangered, and it needs our help, tuatara. All right, 5:30 here. Shoot. Yeah. We might be working a little bit later today, depending on how work goes at the site. But yeah. And there used to be a habitat exhibit for tuatara in central Wellington, which was pretty wild to walk past. Candlewhite, that's so cool. Are you from New Zealand? Awesome. Yeah. And there's a PBS Eons episode about them. Neat. I didn't know that, Chaotic Time Traveler. Cool. Yeah. From New Zealand. Very cool Candlewhite. Yeah, my mom went on a trip to New Zealand this year, which is a big deal for her, and she really enjoyed it. I've never been, but I'd love to go. See some tuatara, see some kiwi, see some moa fossils, see some tree ferns. There's so much. Yeah, I'm a little jealous. Yeah. Makes sense. And Ungoy, well, I mean, sure, tuatara are not the most agile animals in the world, but they're really special and really cool, They're unique. There's only one species. It's the true definition of the word unique, I think that's really cool. Yeah. Neat, Candlewhite. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So anyway, we've been streaming for how long now? 3 hours, 41 minutes? That's a good while. And Dust Fuster says, tuatara remind me of the creatures movie directors in the cheesy 1950s monster movies would glue fins and horns to. Yeah, they never did that with tuatara to my knowledge, but they would use iguanas, alligators. I've seen like rubber fins and stuff attached to, I think a big skink. Yeah. Not great films. ones like King Dinosaur and the 19th world. Yeah, films. I'll put it that way. Monitor lizards too, exactly diagonal. Yeah. Anyhow, it's amusing. Sometimes they were really cruel to those animals on set, making them fight for the camera and stuff like that. Like some of them probably got really badly hurt. Yeah, and it also just went back to that perception of dinosaurs just being big lizards. I don't know. It just rankles me as a dinosaur paleontologist. I don't like it. Yeah. MST3K. Excuse me. Das Fuster. Yeah. The King Dinosaur episode is very amusing. I would recommend it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they just blew them up, made it look like people fought them. Yeah, what film was that? Shoot. I think it was, what was it? 1 million BC, I think was that one. Like cavemen fighting giant lizards that are supposed to be dinosaurs. It's just, none of it made any sense. But, yeah. Anywho. Yeah. And that used stop motion? No, Dr. Morbius, you're thinking of 1 million years BC, which had Ray Harryhausen stop motion, the famous battle between the Ceratosaurus and the Triceratops. Yeah, but I think it's just 1 million years is the one that I'm thinking of, from 1940, I want to say. Yeah. No, 1 million BC, there you go. Yeah. But 1 million years BC, that's the stop motion one. Yeah. And Candle said that, yeah. Journey to the Center of the Earth used, I think, rhinoceros iguanas, if memory serves. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different one. I don't know. Yeah. Thankfully, dinosaur films somewhat in the time since then. But, oh boy. That new Jurassic World film is coming out in next week. And I'll probably have to see that because people are going to ask me about it and I'll need to know what it's like and everything. So maybe I can convince Ios to go to the movies with me and we'll go watch it. But I expect it's going to be terrible. I don't know. We'll see. Need to know what to debunk, says Ash. Exactly. Yeah, shoot. As somebody who does science outreach full time about dinosaur paleontology, unfortunately, I kind of have to keep my finger on the pulse of public imagination. Although this feels much more like I've got my finger elsewhere. But yeah. Thank you for your sacrifice, says the Raven. Yeah. And Sloth Dad says, you mean Jurassic Park didn't inspire you to become a paleontologist? Well, we're talking about Jurassic World. It's very, very different. Oh boy. We were talking about this earlier, how the first Jurassic Park film was actually really decent. Was that today or yesterday we were talking about that? I don't know. It's blurring together now. But yeah, the first Jurassic Park film, this was today. Yeah. Was really good for dinosaur paleontology in general. Yeah, and then, you kind of get decreasing returns and a decrease in the quality of the dinosaurs. You get to Jurassic World and it's just... and now this new one has got, mutant dinosaurs and... I think there were, centaurs and cyclopses in the trailer, what are we even doing at this point, Goodness. What happens if a T-Rex were to fight a Sasquatch? Yeah. Yeah, tricycle plots. Yeah, there you go, Paleo Ken. Yeah. Yeah. And Johnny with a 0 says, I can completely relate. As someone who works in medicine, it's incredibly hard to watch all these medical dramas. Yeah. Although I'm sure there's like one or two that you really like, right? Where it's like, yeah, this reminds me of my job. And sometimes it's kind of fun when like some of the main characters, it's almost like the filmmakers are like glorifying your profession. It's like, yeah, in my case, a paleontologist gets to be the hero of the story. That's really cool. But yeah, I don't know if there's been a paleontologist character in the Jurassic World films. I guess except for the last one. I don't know if there's going to be any in the new one. The dinosaurs all look pretty terrible from what I've seen. And then they just have these crazy, dumb, made-up monsters. Like, again, what's the point? Why not have dinosaurs in your dinosaur movie, I don't understand it. Yeah. And Slot Dad says, I'm a lawyer and I hate law movies, except My Cousin Vinny. Nice. How do you feel about Lionel Hutz, attorney at law from The Simpsons? Love him or hate him there, Slot Dad. He is accurate. Yeah. Works on contingency? No. Money down. Yeah. And Salt Pestilin. I never actually really watched Terra Nova. But yeah, my old boss was the advisor on that. Jack Horner was the scientific consultant, the paleontological consultant for Terra Nova. I think I watched like an episode or two and just never really got into it. I don't know. I was in like middle school at the time. Yeah. Yeah. Anywho, the 65 movie, yeah, HD and HP. You know about my trailer recut for that. Mrs. Arribos says the only other paleontologist on TV that I know of was Ross from Friends. Yeah, I've got a mixed, well, mostly negative perception of Ross from Friends. Terrible paleontologist, but there is a silver lining there. And it's that there are so many thousands, maybe millions of people around the world who wouldn't know the name, like the word paleontologist, if it weren't for Friends. So that is one positive aspect. Usually people confuse us with archaeologists, which is, I don't know, I can't help but be really annoyed by that. But at least people learned the word paleontologist from Friends, and that's a good thing, I just wish it were a better depiction of what a paleontologist is. But yeah. And I imagine there are people who are bad at their job. Maybe he's just one of them. He wouldn't have a job. Yeah. And Ash says, speaking of media, I had started to watch When Whales Walked on PBS, but just about everything in what I saw was discussed here the next day. Turned out to be speculative at best, while presented as fact in the show. Interesting. I haven't seen that. I wonder if Fisher has, actually. Yeah. Fisher's just been reading a book on fossil whales and modern whales. Let's see if he's got a take on this. Oh, and there's something important going on for me to interrupt.
We're trying to figure out what lizard osteoderms look like.
Oh. You think that could be a lizard osteoderm?
This one, I'm not so sure, but I did pull something that
neat.
It's kind of polygonal with a little point.
Yeah.
Reminded me of an osteoderm.
Is that a lizard osteoderm there?
Yeah, this is one from the White River.
Interesting.
Oligocene.
Huh.
I feel like I've pulled things that look like that before.
So what kind of lizard would this be from? Is it like from a modern group or somebody who's...
I don't know what Peltosaurus granulosus is, but...
Yeah. Because I don't think like skinks have osteoderms. Monitors don't have osteoderms to my knowledge.
I believe monitors do.
Monitors do?
I don't know. I'm very ignorant when it comes to this field. The only thing... I didn't even know lizards had osteoderms until I met someone who works on fossil squamates when I was at DMNS.
Huh. Interesting.
But now I'm wondering, like, some of these really small, tiny polygonal guys, whether those are squamate osteoderms.
Jim says, well, let's see it. Okay, Jim.
This one I don't think so, but the other one is put in a vial, and it's so small that I don't know how.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's just a tiny, tiny piece of turtle.
Yeah.
Like that
one.
A microtrionychid.
Let's see if I can find the one that I pulled earlier.
Yeah.
It's super small. Smaller than the mammal tooth.
We're hearing that P. granulosus was described by Cope in 1873. It's an extinct group.
Here we are.
Oh. Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea, but...
Weird, yeah.
But it's like a kind of polygonal, and it's got a little point that comes out of the center.
What do you think it is?
Me? I don't know, but...
Okay. Huh. Weird.
I feel like lizard osteoderm is an okay shout.
Paleo Jim's doing telepaleontology.
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll see. I need an expert and a microscope to
Yeah.
really determine that. But
Nice. Yeah, okay. Cool. Now, we had a question about, have you seen the PBS documentary When Whales Walked?
that's the one where the really famous sequence comes from, where it starts with Pecasitas.
Oh, like a cartoony thing jumping in the water?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've seen that many times.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually ever seen the whole documentary.
I haven't seen it either, but Ash in chat was saying that they were watching it and then asked questions about that here, and it turns out like everything from the documentary, we were like, no, that's not the case. So I don't know how old it is, but yeah.
I do like fossil whales.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. Did you finish Pineson's book yet?
No.
Spying on Whales, good book by Nick Pineson.
Just starting the third arc of it. Learning
Nice.
about aging right whales.
Yeah. You have to put them into a home when they get too old, and it's very expensive.
Yeah, using the baleen and looking at the eyes and using archaeological data, stone spear points.
Yeah. That's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like in Ofen was like, who was throwing stone points at these guys? This was like 200 years ago, maybe? Just nuts. Yeah. But yeah. And Jim thinks maybe it's a batoid thorn?
It could be.
Huh.
I don't know. This place is full of surprises.
Yeah.
And it makes me Google a lot, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. It's a learning experience at all times. Good old Turtle Hill. Yeah. Good stuff. Anyway, thanks for letting me interrupt again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Man, I am hungry and feeling a little tired. We might wrap up the stream. We've been going for almost 4 hours at this point. And, yeah, shoot. I think we might do that. Unless anybody else has got some pressing questions. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Not forever. We'll be streaming again tomorrow. Hopefully at around 2 p.m. California, or 2 p.m. Wyoming time. Whatever time that is where you are. 2 p.m. Mountain Time. But that's provided that I don't have too much else to do. I've been trying to stream every day, but there's been a few days we've had to take off for weather or for other reasons. But, yeah. Heading out to the Green River and Denver Museum next week. Very cool, Kitsy Panda. Awesome. Hope you have a great time there. Well, shoot. Let's see. Hey, Fisher. If we have somebody visiting the Denver Museum, what would you recommend they go see?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Well, there's always a joke in the Paleo Lab that none of us have seen Expedition Health. And it's a joke, but also an admission.
Yeah?
So I can't speak for that exhibit, but everything else is quite cool. The Journey Through Time Hall is pretty awesome. But I honestly think that the wildlife dioramas are my favorite part.
Nice, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
We've got some really beautiful...
I didn't even see those when I went. Yeah. I did a stream from there and just did the walk through time. Yeah. And also, I misread the chat message. They didn't mean the Denver Museum. They meant Dinosaur National Monument. So, also very cool.
D&M. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, the museum is quite short, so
yeah,
you can get that taken care of pretty quickly. There's some really nice trails at D&M. The Sound of Silence trail is the one I took, I think, when I was there 2 years ago.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Quite enjoyed that one. I did it at dusk, which is quite beautiful.
Nice.
Let's see, what else? I didn't spend that much time there.
I spent like 4 hours at the fossil wall.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It's really amazing, yeah.
But it is short.
Yeah.
So, depending on how much mileage you get out of the individual fossils that you can see come from a distance.
It's really neat. If you go there, when you're at Dinosaur National Monument and you're at the fossil wall, see if Tiff is there. She's one of the rangers. And tell her Danny sent you. Danny from Paleontologizing on Twitch. Tiff is really cool, and I think we've had her, I think both times I live streamed from Dinosaur National Monument. Tiff was on stream. She's a great sport, and she's really cool. Tiff is her name. And let's see, Call Me Viola says, have you ever always wanted to be a paleontologist? And if no, was it hard choosing? It was hard, because when I was a kid, I really wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur. And then, the joke is that the same day I realized I couldn't grow up to be a dinosaur, that wasn't really a viable career path, I made the difficult decision to become a paleontologist instead, that same day. And I've never looked back. Yeah. So here we are. I don't know. I've always been deeply, deeply fascinated by dinosaurs and by the history. I've always really loved animals, and to me, dinosaurs are kind of the ultimate animal. Yeah. So dinosaurs in particular, but all kinds of different fossil critters I find really fascinating. I find, pretty much all of nature at least mildly interesting, if not incredibly fascinating. So everything from, the dinosaurs we've been digging up at other sites to the little fossil vertebrates we find here at Turtle Hill, to these fossil plants that we got here, like I was showing you yesterday. All of these are important pieces of the grand puzzle we're trying to put together, uncovering the history of life on Earth. It's such a be able to do this, I'm not enough people in this world get to actually pursue their dreams. And I recognize how incredibly lucky I've been to be able to do that. And I guess this is my way of, in some small way, trying to brighten up the world a little bit, make the world a slightly kinder, more hospitable, more fun place by sharing this with all of you. Again, I've been super, super lucky to be able to pursue my passion, and this is my way of trying to give back a little bit. And I'm touched that people appreciate that and keep coming back to watch. And it's such a privilege to be able to do this. Ken says I also spent like 4 hours at the fossil wall. Yeah, that's the thing, is that I don't know. This goes along with what I was saying. Just being there at the fossil wall and seeing all of there in place in the same spot they've been for 145 million years. They're still there in the rock, all scattered there on the surface. And you just walk into this grand building and there they are. The building itself, it feels almost like a cathedral to science, like it's just glorifying nature. And I think that's truly beautiful. It's the sort of thing that brings a tear to my eye. And speaking of Tiff, the ranger there, she told me a story that, this was years and years ago. She was there just making the rounds, talking to people, and there was this like middle-aged man there sitting on a bench, and he's just weeping. And she's like, what is going on? She goes over and she talks to him. And he was from Hawaii. And he apparently was there when they were filming scenes for Jurassic Park. And he's like, at the time, like, oh yeah, Hollywood film, special effects, Hollywood magic, whatever, whatever. Then he made his way to Dinosaur National Monument. Like, I guess he was traveling across the mainland US or something and just kind of happened to stumble in. And he was like, holy cow, they're real. He had always just kind of assumed that dinosaurs were some, pop culture invention or something like that. And seeing those bones there in the rock was deeply affecting to him. It was almost a spiritual experience. Like his world just opened up, became so much more grand and beautiful, and it was just emotionally overwhelming for him. That's the power of a place like Dinosaur National Monument. It is truly astonishing. So I'm really glad you get to go there, Kitsy Panda. It's pretty magical. It's pretty magical. Yeah. And Afromatics is glad I found your channel. Interesting stuff, honestly. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, it's this sort of thing that I'm trying to share with everybody, Whether it's at a site like Turtle Hill here, where the fossils might not be the most charismatic, but they're really scientifically important, or a site like the Purple Puzzle Hadrosaur, where things are a bit more big and grandiose and charismatic. Or whether it's like the Ankylosaur site, where the bones are really hard to see, but they're still really important. We'll be streaming from there later in the week, I think. Yeah, like all of this is important, and I'm glad that I'm able to share different sites with people so you can kind of see how they vary and appreciate the importance and the beauty of each individual site. Yeah. With that said, I think it's about time for me to wrap this up here. So let's find somebody else who's streaming here on Twitch. Maybe somebody doing some science. And we'll go join them. So let's see. Watch. Following. Who have we got? Let's see. Not a whole lot of options today, science-wise. But let's try... let's go say hello to Melissa in Denial, who is an archaeologist and an Egyptologist. She's playing some Assassin's Creed Shadows. We'll go see what she is up to here. There we go. Yeah. Let's see. My channel. Chat. Raid. Oh, wait. No. Hang on. I have to do this in the Twitch app or it won't work. Hang on. Sorry. Darn it. I confused myself with... Nope. No, that's the right one. Okay. All right, beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna go check in with Melissa and talk about archaeology with her. Everybody, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your questions and your enthusiasm. Thank you for that financial support. That's the reason I can be out here in the first place. The reason I can pay the bills. This is my full-time job, so thank you for helping me put food on the table. I appreciate that immensely. Thank you to the moderators who work so hard to keep this a safe and welcoming community for everybody. Love you all, mods. I really appreciate your hard work. And to the raiders, the followers, the new chatters, the lurkers, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hope to see you again tomorrow. We from a different site. We shall see. But we'll be right back at some more field paleontology. So everybody, you take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.